records before. So we have the man that controls the energy. We have the man that drills the.
Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm doing a late night recording. It's the Asian session. We're going to just do a live stream with YouTube tonight, not with YouTube and Rumble. I will open up the X Spaces for anyone that wants to listen or to do a call-in. I'll do that shortly here. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Please help support my work by making sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube: Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please make sure you subscribe to all 7 channels. Extremely important. Trust me on this. Also follow me on X. I have 2 channels on X and 1 on GETTR. So follow me there to get notifications of certain things that I need to communicate with you when things happen. So while I give the X Spaces open, I'm gonna go back to live now.
I know he's going to be. Thanks a lot, Chris. If we can bring energy down, everything's coming down. You know, the eggs are coming down and the bacon's coming. Those 2 guys are very important. Established a National Energy Dominance Council, chaired by the former colleague and your former colleague, Secretary Burgum. He's going to do a fantastic job of putting incredible people on it. I withdrew from the one-sided, very expensive Paris Climate Accord. It's a one-way street. You know, under that accord, we pay $1 trillion. Think of it. We pay $1 trillion. They pay nothing. China doesn't pay anything. India doesn't pay anything. Russia doesn't pay. We just pay everybody. It's like a health organization, and every deal is no good. But we're changing it. We terminated health. You know, in the World Health, we paid $500 million a year. And China paid $39 million a year. I said, that doesn't sound good. They have 1.4 billion people, and we have nobody knows what the hell our number is, because so many people pour into our country. We used to say like 325. I have no idea. We'll figure it out eventually, but let's put it this way. It should be substantially less than 1.4. But we have, let's say we have 325 million, they have 1.4. We're paying 500 million. And these aren't, in relative to government, these aren't huge numbers, but this is an example of what happens when you have bad government, when you have incompetent people. So I would explain this, and they called me and they said, we'll let you in for the same 39 million. I said, well, we should be much less than 39. We should be, but I didn't even want to do that because I'm not going to talk. I said, I'll think about it. And it was very public. And when Biden came in, he agreed to go back into the World Health for $500 million. He could have gotten, I mean, it's a lot of money. You could have gotten it for 39 million, Joe. That's why you're not president any longer, I guess. I could have had it for 39. They were still there. It was very public. But he took the 500 million instead, because he never laid in bed at night sweating, tossing and turning like half of these governors. Not all of them, probably. But half of them is sweating. How are we going to do a great job? He never did that. But that's just a case study in, you know, how not to run. Because, you know, if we had people at that level that would have negotiated. I bought a plane. It's really 2 planes, Air Force One. Now Boeing would build the damn thing. It would be nice too. We don't build like we used to. We don't build too fast. I gave the order out about 6 years ago. They're still waiting. Getting a little tired of it. I gave a fixed price deal. But it was 5.7 billion. I negotiated with Boeing. It took about 2 months, and I got the 5.7 down to 4 billion. Actually, 1 penny less than 4. I said it has to have a 3 on it. And he said, you want from 5.7 to 3? And I said, yeah, 3 on it, meaning it has to start with a 3. And after about 2 months of saying no, 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 it has to have a 3, has to have a 3, he called up. He said, sir, 3 billion. I want, and this is what happened. 3,999,999,999, and 99 cents, 1 penny less. I said, you have a deal. But we saved $1.7 billion just by negotiating. And in all fairness, mostly you can do that, and some of you do it. Some of you do, you have surplus states, you have incredible states, and you have to do that because every time somebody sends you a bill, they expect to be negotiated. And in the past administration, and sometimes I guess in this it happens because people don't care. Elon talks about caring. Caring is very important, and they have to care. If they care, they say, no, I'll pay you. They'll send you a bill for $10,000, and you say, no, I'll give you 5. And they'll say, no way, no way, no way. And you'll end up paying 6 or 7 or something. But all you have to do is care a little bit and try and get it down. And literally every contract, I think there's not a contract that's sent in government that I couldn't come and that many of you couldn't cut and cut very substantially. And boy, what a difference it would make for the government. I terminated the Green New Scam, one of the great scams in the history of our country. I canceled Joe Biden's insane electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry from destruction. That was an easy one. And all of this helps to combat inflation and bring down costs. We're bringing down costs way down. We're going to bring up jobs like you haven't seen because the company's pouring in. We're going to have announcements over the next 3-4 weeks that you're not going to believe from some of the biggest companies in the world. And the numbers are staggering. Hundreds of billions of dollars of investment, hundreds and hundreds, trillions of dollars when you add it up, to slash hundreds of billions of dollars in waste and fraud. We're talking about also on abuse. I've created, as you possibly have read just a little bit, the Department of Government Efficiency. And here are just some of the things that we paid and we've stopped and we've gotten the money back. $520 million for a consultant to do ESG, that's environmental, social, and governance investments in Africa. $525 million. $25 million to promote biodiversity conservation and social responsibility behavior in Colombia. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody even knows what the hell it means. $42 million for social and behavioral change in Uganda. $10 million for Mozambique medical male circumcision. We're doing circumcisions in Mozambique to the tune of approximately 12 million. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $486 million to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, including $22 million for inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova, and $21 million for voter turnout in India. Why are we caring about India turnout? We got enough problems. We want our own turnout, don't we? Can you imagine all that money going to India? I wonder what they think when they get it. Now, it's a kickback scheme. It's not like they get it and they spend. They kick it back to the people that send it, I would say, in many cases. Many of these cases, anytime you have no idea what we're talking about, that means there's a kickback. Because nobody has any idea what's going on there. $29 million to strengthen the political landscape in Bangladesh. Nobody knows what they mean by political landscape. What does that mean? $20 million for fiscal federalism and $19 million for biodiversity in Nepal. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. What the hell do I care about? We got a lot. We got enough problems. And all of this is terminated. We terminated this stuff and we're on the track. And by the way, so many others I could read all night long, but so many were so terrible, and some were actually disgusting. And I know you're eating your dinner, so I didn't want to do that. But we're draining the swamp. And one of them was $100 million for condoms for Hamas. You heard about that. 50 and 50. It's 50 million, and then they decided they needed more condoms, so they sent another 50 million. So it's 100 million condoms for Hamas. But now that's the good stuff. Here's even worse. Social Security. As you know, generally speaking, people don't live to be over 100 years old. We all will, I think 120, 130, hopefully. But, you hate when you get near that number. It's like, let's hope we can live to length like this. But here's what we're finding and what we found. And these were all found by these computer geniuses. I asked Elon, what trait do these have? They started off with 12 guys, and they had 30 guys, and they had 57 guys. Now they have over 100 guys, and he attracts very young people with high IQs, you know. Some people attract very beautiful people. I think I like them better, actually. But he attracts young people that are brilliant, and they love the country too. But I said, what trait do they really have? And the trait that they really have was that they're extraordinary with computers. They can take them. He said they make love to their computer. I said, I don't want to hear about that. Doesn't sound good. So they can take apart the most complex computer instruments and literally put them back blindfolded. So when they go into some guy that's ripping off the country by doing some of the things.
Why did the feed drop? That's
a mistake. It was a big mistake. And we're finding hundreds of billions of dollars worth of fraud, waste and abuse, but I think fraud will be the number one as we see. But listen to this on the program. There are 4.7 million Social Security members who go and live from 100 to 109. Well, I'll tell you, I know some people that are close to 100. I know one or two that got over that mark. But you don't have millions. 3.6 million people from age 110 to age 119. 3.47 million people from age 120 to 129. In other words, 120 to 129 years old. Millions of people, millions. 3.9 million people from age 130 to 139, which is pretty amazing because the longest living person ever on record, and they're not sure it was correct, was a woman from a very far away place, lived to 127 years old. She was a healthy specimen, but she lived to 127. 3.5 million people from age 140 to 149. So we have 140-year-old people plus millions of them. 1.3 million people live to over 150 years of age, 150 to 159 to be exact. Over 130,000 people over the age of 160 years old, including 1,039 people between the ages of 220 to 229. And we're going to be investigating this fraud. Actually, we had one person who was 361 years old. And what we're doing now is we're finding how many of these people were paid. So we have millions of people, could be well over 100 million people in our Social Security rolls. So the good news is when we take them off, whether they were paid or not, it looks like our Social Security could be really solid. It could be a lot better than we thought, if you think about it. And I'm going to do something. I'm actually going on this one. You know, all my life I've heard about Fort Knox. That's where the gold is kept, right? I heard Fort Knox. Oh, but you know, we're getting a little bit shaky. We're getting the yips on this stuff. Like, I want to find out. So we're going to open up the doors. I'm going to see if we have gold there. We want to find out. Did anybody steal the gold in Fort Knox? It's a pretty amazing place, but I'm going to actually go. We're going to open the doors. We're going to inspect Fort Knox. We want to make sure that we actually have, you know, 400 tons of gold or whatever the hell it is. It's a lot of gold. I don't want to open it and the cupboards are bare. Could happen. If you look at some of the things, oh, by the way, where do we go into the education department? We haven't even done that. So we could find as much as $1.5 trillion worth of waste, fraud, and abuse. If we do that, we can balance budgets. We can do a lot of other things, especially when you couple it with the massive amounts of tariffs that are coming in already. You know, just
please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Help support my work and help support your health. It's a win-win situation by getting the great products that I have. Please go to my store and get the lavender structural nano silver soap. I also have in new packaging the peppermint structural nano silver soap. And in the old packaging, I have the charcoal tea tree structural nano silver soap and the lemongrass version. Please go to my store, get a couple bars of this, help support my work and help support your health. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Also, please go to my store and get the toothpaste. This is a very high quality toothpaste. It's fluoride free. It has structural nano silver. It'll whiten your teeth freshen your breath, reduce the inflammation in your gum line, and help with oral hygiene. When you have good oral hygiene, you're gonna help reduce the chances of valvular disease or vascular disease. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a few tubes of this toothpaste for your household. It is the best toothpaste that you're going to be able to get. It's extremely high quality. Yes, it's more expensive, but there's a reason, because it is the best toothpaste that you can buy. So please get a few tubes of this toothpaste. Help support my work and help support your health. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order.
What we are charging, I won't mention the country because I don't want to anger people that like me, and I like them very much. But we're finding at least $60 billion a year in one country alone, and I haven't even started. It's just a very small portion that I've been, attached to them. So I got a call from Congress. They said, a lot of money is coming in from these tariffs, and they're starting to change their whole thing. So if you can add the tariffs, and this is numbers that I don't want to say it because then they'll say he didn't produce, but you could wipe out your income tax. You could maybe not even have an income tax system when this thing works out. Because in the old days, that's what happened. Our country was the richest ever from 1870 to 1913. That's when we were actually the richest, and we were a full tariff country. McKinley, and by the way, I just renamed Mount McKinley. I hope you're happy about that. But McKinley was the president. He was a tariff guy, and he believed that countries should not be allowed to come in and plunder. He would see a beautiful language on tariffs: plunder our wealth, plunder our jobs, steal our companies, and take our money without paying a very fair price. And he said, and that price should be more than fair. It should be high, because what they do is they hurt our country.
For the ones that are watching the live stream on YouTube, please join X Spaces if you have a question. Just request the mic, or if you have a comment about the news today, just request the mic and I will put you on the air live. For the ones that are in X Spaces, thank you for joining.
And we became very rich. He was assassinated, and as you know, Roosevelt took over, Teddy, and he spent money on parks and on dams and on everything. But he really spent a lot of the money. McKinley never got the credit, but he spent a lot of the money that McKinley made. But it was the richest we ever were in the 1800s, early 1900s. And then in 1913, we went to the income tax system. And to be honest, we did fine, but we were never like we were. They formed the Tariff Commission of 1887. And it was a commission of people like you, blue bloods. Are you blue bloods? A couple, and about 3 of them over here. But blue bloods. But it was a commission, and it was set up for the sole purpose of, we have so much money. This is in the United States. We don't know. We had no debt. We had no nothing. We had massive amounts of money. The commission was set up to determine where we should spend our money. Where do we spend it? That's so much. Can you imagine? Wouldn't that be nice? Now look at what they're doing, but this is money we have to borrow when they're doing it. But we're going to find out that this money went to people and it got kicked back. You're going to find out a lot of that, but we'll catch it all. We've launched the largest deregulation campaign in our country's history. For every one new regulation, I've directed that 10 old regulations must be eliminated. And I will say, in my first term, we did more deregulation than any president in history by far, not even close. With Republicans in Congress, we're also racing to pass the largest tax cuts in American history. We brought it down from 41%, much higher if you add the state things, but 41% to 21%, which people said was impossible. And now I'm trying to bring it down to 15%. So to go from 21 to 15, but only if you make your product in the United States of America. Otherwise, you pay 21%. That'll be great to protect American auto workers.
Lisa, I answered your question in the text, so just read the answer.
way, they're gonna be one of the biggest beneficiaries of what we're doing with tariffs, because they just stopped two big auto plants in the middle of construction from being built in Mexico, because they see, when I got elected, they saw, oh, this is gonna be a problem for us, because we have big tariffs going on, and we have tariffs going on autos, and they don't have to pay any tariffs. There is no tariff. All you have to do is build your plant in the United States. They were building plants in Mexico right opposite the border. They're making them in Mexico. They're selling them into the United States with virtually no tax. And they're killing all our, Detroit, all these places are being killed. Now it's the exact opposite. And by the way, Canada was a big participant in that too. And I think Canada, they're gonna have to pay tariffs on automobiles, lumber, and oil and gas, et cetera, et cetera. And they get 95% of their product from the United States. I think they have to become the 51st state. And you heard the people booing the national anthem, but I think ultimately they'll be praising the national anthem. We'll have to work out some deal with it, because I do like the "O Canada," right? It's a beautiful thing. I think we're going to have to keep it for the 51st state. I called him Governor Trudeau. I said, Governor Trudeau's doing a wonderful job. I think it's actually cost him his election, if you want to know the truth. But we're gonna see about that. We're looking at Greenland, and we have to take back the Panama Canal, because that wasn't the deal. We gave the Panama Canal to Panama. It was the most expensive thing ever built in our country. It'd be the equivalent of $2 trillion today. We spend massive amounts. We lost 38,000 lives from the mosquito and snakes. A lot of bad snake bites, but mostly the mosquitoes, the malaria. They killed.
That was another bad policy from the Carter administration, giving that up. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver. You can get it in the tube form or in this dispenser form. Have it at home or at work. You never know when you need it. It's a dual purpose product. You can use it for skincare. You can use it for after shaving. If someone's sick around you, put it on your hands, around your eyes, around your ears, around your nose, around your mouth. Lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours. It's a dual purpose product. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 on any order, and you get $5. You get $5 off. I have 2 great probiotics. One in a powdered form, another in a veggie cap form. Whichever way you want to take it, take these every day. Improve your gut biome. Your digestion will improve. Your immune system will improve. You're going to improve your mental clarity. Your sleep will improve. Not just that, there is evidence to suggest that a bad gut biome and certain microbes can cause early onset of dementia. So you want to have a healthy gut. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get these very high quality probiotics, either in the powdered form or in the veggie cap form. I prefer the powdered form because I mix it with all the different powders that I take for lunch. But it's really important to have a good gut biome. You'll also notice that your hair, your nails, and your skin will improve. And lastly, take this multivitamin. It's a very high quality multivitamin that's easy to digest. It's important to take a multivitamin because you get the minerals and the essential vitamins that you need for proper enzymatic activity. Your enzymes have docking areas where it uses cofactors to change its conformation so it can act as an enzyme and do its cellular processes at a higher efficiency. So it's very important to take a multivitamin every day. This should be part of your daily routine, but then you add stuff to it. All right. But please get a good multivitamin. The one I have on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, is easy to digest, and you get the multivitamins that you need that are essential for these enzymatic activities. All right. Then you add to it, and then you're boosting up your immune system and your slowing down the aging process. You follow my protocol, you're gonna get healthier.
Thousand of our people, they paid laborers 5 times what they were getting in the United States to go, knowing that there was a good chance they were going to die. 20% of them died. And Jimmy Carter, may he rest in peace, the late great Jimmy Carter, gave it away for $1. It's also the most profitable thing ever built. You know, it's what you hear about casinos and you hear about all this stuff, they're peanuts compared to this. It's the most profitable thing ever built. There's never been anything. I mean, you have ships lined up. And by the way, when they gave it away like a bunch of dummies for $1. The day after they took over, they raised the price per ship by 4 times. That wasn't high enough. There was no problem. They raised it again twice. And they're getting almost $1 million a ship. And the product is water. It's Pacific and Atlantic where they meet, and one is about 18 feet higher than the other, which a lot of people don't know. Actually, it's one of the great marvels of the world. Well, we built it, and we're not going to let, because China has essentially taken it over. We're not going to let that happen. China knows it, and so does Panama. To protect American workers and bring billions of dollars into our treasury, we're in the process of imposing reciprocal tariffs on any nation that tries to cheat us or steal our jobs. So India, as an example, has very, very high tariffs. And I was going to impose a flat tariff, but that wouldn't really do the trick because some of the countries have really high tariffs. So it really works out much better. Nobody can even fight it. Whatever they charge us, we charge them. So if they're at 25%, we are 25. If they're at 75, we're at 7. Whatever they charge us. And it was very interesting. The European Union, you know, we were 2.5% for cars. European Union was much higher. They just reduced their tariffs on cars to 2.5 to be reciprocal with us. So that's just an early sign. But I think that's going to happen. And then some will want to fight us a little bit, but it doesn't matter. They're reciprocal. And even the press says, oh, I see. Well, they don't fight us. You know, if I put a flat tariff on like 25, 30%, even if it was lower than we would have gotten, if we put a flat tariff on, the press would have gone crazy. Well, that's terrible. Even if somebody was paying like 5 times more, charging us 5 times more. When you say reciprocal, I said it the other day to the failing New York Times. I said, listen, whatever they charge us, we charge them. They go, well, that sounds fair. It really does, doesn't it? So it's a reciprocal tariff, whatever they charge us. I've ended Joe Biden's weaponization of our government and removed his handpicked radical left Marxist prosecutors from the Department of Justice. We have a great Attorney General, Pam. I immediately halted all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. I signed an executive order to end all of the lawless diversity, equity, and inclusion policies across the entire federal government and private sector. Do you see how much it costs? One company said they're going out of that business and they're going to write off $229 million. How do you spend that much money to convince people that they should have transgender operations and various and sundry other things that we don't like to talk about? It's crazy the amount of money it was almost like just a mind blower what they were doing. It was terrible and all over. And by the way, our military is now free of that. Anybody that even tries it, they're gone. I signed really historic orders to get critical race theory and transgender ideology out of the schools and out of our military. It's all going out. It's no longer. And I heard men are still playing in Maine. Is anybody here from Maine? Who is that? Is that the governor? That's, well, I hate to tell you this, but we're not going to give them any federal money. They are still saying we want men to play in women's sports, and I cannot believe that they're doing that. They are, let's find out who that guy is that raised his hand. Maybe she's kidding, but so we're not going to give them any federal funding, none whatsoever, until they clean that up. And the other one, we have a fight with one news organization, AP, a radical left organization, treats us all very badly. And they refuse to acknowledge that the Gulf, former of Mexico, is now called the Gulf of America. So we just hold them, we're holding them we're holding them out of any news conferences, or now I'm sure they'll get sued and maybe they'll win, doesn't matter. It's just something that we feel strongly about now. And I said we changed Mount McKinley. Nobody's fighting that. You're allowed to do it. Well, we're allowed to do. And most of the shoreline is, 85% of it is on our soil. But I thought it would be appropriate. I never understood quite the Gulf of Mexico when it really covers us far more. And I think Doug is a big believer in what we did, the Gulf of America. So we're having a little dispute, but only one. But Google Maps has already changed. Almost everybody's already changed. It's called the Gulf of America. And earlier this month, I signed an order banning men from women's sports. And that's why when somebody wants to do that, and even the NCAA has already complied, and they have sent us a letter, they have fully complied with that. I also proudly banned the use of puberty blockers, hormone injections, you believe this? And other chemical and surgical mutilations of all minor youth. Do you believe you have to say that, man? It's terrible. Who would believe that we're talking about even these things? Men playing in 10 years ago, 15 years ago, could you imagine? People would say, is he crazy talking about this? And they're still fighting us, but let them fight. As I said, we're going to make universal school choice a very big, strong thing, school choice. And we're working very, very hard to send these schools and education back to the states where they can be properly run. In other words, this really affects the people in this room, but you're going to be running your schools, and who can do worse? Look, they rate them in the top 40. So we just came out with one that we were number 40, but we were number 1 in cost per pupil. And I mean, I know a lot of the governors in this room, you run a great state and you'll do great with education at a much lower price. We're going to give you whatever you need, but at a much lower price. We have people in Washington, D.C. that, in all fairness, in many cases, don't give a damn about your pupils or your students or your states. And they're running everything, and they're running it into the ground. So it came out, we're last in education, but first in cost per pupil. Norway, Denmark, Sweden, I have to tell you, China, and a few others are always in the top 5. And I really believe that 35 or 36 states, and all of you are here, almost all of you here representing those states, I think you're going to have education that's every bit as good as Norway and Denmark and Sweden and all of them. And then we'll have some laggards, and you know who the laggards are going to be. You just have to look at everything else. But in everything we do, we're putting America first, because the Republican Party is now known as the party of common sense. It's a party of common sense, very important. I think it's a very important phrase for you to use. It's all about common sense. We're conservative, and we're a lot of things, but most important thing is we have to use common sense. Thanks in part to the hard work of the people in this room, we're forging a new political majority that is shattering and replacing Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal coalition, which dominated American politics for nearly 100 years. Under our leadership, the Republican Party has become the proud voice of hardworking citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. We are a much bigger, much more powerful party. Now is the time for us all to press forward, think big, be bold, and deliver the once-in-a-lifetime reforms our citizens need and really deserve. They've gone through hell for 4 years. Some of them don't even know it. They've just been led down a path. They don't even know what they've gone through. As one team, we can make our borders stronger, our communities safer, our schools better, our families happier, our citizens wealthier, and our country freer, 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 and more exceptional than ever before. We will work together, and we will absolutely, without question, make America great again. God bless you all, and do a great job, and go home and watch the hockey game. It should be interesting. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the digestive enzyme complex. Reduce the load on your pancreas. When you get older, your pancreas doesn't perform as well. Taking the digestive enzyme complex will allow you to break up, digest carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, and reduce that load on that pancreas. If you're an athlete, young or older, take the digestive enzyme complex to break up your pre or post-workout fueling. please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the B complex. The B complex helps to improve the health of your mitochondria. The first 4 vitamin Bs are to help to support the electron transport chain. That boosts up your ATP, so you'll have more energy. Vitamin B complex also helps with cellular metabolism. And when you get older, you need to protect your neurons. B12 protects neurons. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5 on any order, and you get $5 off. Taking vitamin B complex, if you're 40 plus years of age, is very important. Omega-3 is a great way to improve your cardiovascular health. Omega-3 brings down LDL levels, increases HDL levels, so your total cholesterol is better. Plus, omega-3 prevents red blood cells from sticking too much. That means it's preventing over clotting. Also, omega-3 brings down systemic inflammation. So to improve your cardiovascular health, please take omega-3. Vitamin C, you should be taking every day. This vitamin C also has magnesium in it. Boost up your immune system. They'll also improve your skin. If you're not feeling well, take a double dose of it. Make sure you drink it with filtered water because it's water soluble. Calcium and zinc is another supplement that you should take. You should take that with the vitamin C and magnesium to really boost up that immune system. Extremely important. If you're not feeling well, take a 1 dose in the morning, take another dose in the evening, and then once you start feeling better, because of the cold season, then go back to your maintenance dose of just 1 dose a day. Drink it with filtered water because it's water soluble, but it's very important to boost up your immune system. All right, now I want to pivot to the Asian financial news on CNBC.
In trade, even though the earnings came out at the midday and it went up 2%. So we're making back some of those losses, up 2.5%, and renewable profits of 693 million. That is up over 100% year over year for the third quarter. It's fiscal Q3. So we're looking at Lenovo shares here at 12.10 last traded. A very strong showing in the Hong Kong market. Let's see how it's translating over in China. Let's get back to Stan.
We're seeing the Baba effect on the mainland this morning. If you look at big data index, it's up 2%. Computer index for the cloud up 2%. AI up 1.2%. So it is a nice day for some of the tech plays over in China as we very much feel the spillover effect from what we've heard out of Alibaba. No doubt investors seem to be piling into this space and continuing to do so off the back of the nice run-up we had already seen off the back of the DeepSeek breakthrough and, of course, President Xi Jinping's symposium earlier this week. This just seems to be more emphasis and more reason to continue to see more upside, certainly for this sector. So that is why we are seeing perhaps the tech-heavy Shenzhen comp up 0.3%, and the Nasdaq style Chinex up 0.5% this morning. One thing, of course, we are keeping tabs on is what the Chinese leadership has been saying about consumption and efforts to boost that. We've got no details yet, but certainly the communication and the messaging coming from the authorities over there seems to be that they are very much focusing on this. This is going to be continuing to be a top priority for them, particularly now that there is perhaps even more reason, more impetus, given, of course, Trump's trade tariffs. No doubt they need to insulate the economy and they need to get that consumption going in order to do that on the demand side, given the disinflationary pressures that we've seen. So we have got Chinese currency firming up again this morning, 7.25. This had been largely the strength that we'd seen in the back end of in the last session yesterday, fueled by some of the dangling of hopes of a possible trade deal with the US. But we are, of course, waiting to see if there will indeed be a meeting between the presidents and whether they can hammer out a deal. Let's bring in Wok Hoi, who is the CIO of APS Asset Management, joining us around the desk here at the SGX this morning. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's start with Alibaba.
Sure.
What do you think? I mean, some really positive headlines have already been driving the share price higher since the Chinese Lunar New Year. No doubt this is further confirmation of that. Can it continue that?
Firstly, Alibaba has invested tens of billions of dollars in the cloud, but it's not made a profit. But with the success of DeepSeek's R1 model, I think from this year onwards, not just Alibaba's cloud, but many other cloud companies will start to make profits. So if Alibaba can indeed make good ROI on their investment in cloud, then maybe there's still some upside for the company.
Yeah. What do you think of some of the signals that we've been getting this week from the Chinese leadership? I mean, President Xi holding a symposium with the private sector. I mean, no doubt the handshake with Jack Ma was symbolic of the fact that Alibaba has managed to transform itself from an e-commerce giant to an AI darling. And maybe that was sort of the bookend to that. But what about all the other language and communication we've heard about wanting to boost consumption, wanting to break down barriers for more foreign direct investment as well?
That have been said and done so many times the last maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
I think that will continue because the Chinese economy is still sluggish. It needs higher consumption and other contributions from other areas. So Xi Jinping's President Xi's symposium with the entrepreneurs of China, I think there are two signals that he's trying to send to business people and investors. One is that the party and the government are not anti-capitalism, not anti-business, not anti-tycoons, including Jack Ma and so on. The other signal is probably a little more subtle. Is that his handshake with Liang Wenfeng was the longest, which then suggests to me that he wants, the tech companies to be more innovative and therefore make larger contributions to China's economic growth from here.
Time now? You think to bring back the anti-IPO, you think that would be the third signal to the market that he means business, anti-IPO, coming back?
I think this is one of the many things that I think the government will do to bring back confidence. Because for a long time, there is this nagging suspicion that President Xi is trying to steer China back to the old Maoism days or Marxism, this time without the Chinese characteristics, right? Which is, I think, frightened a lot of business people.
I suppose it's the subtleties, to your point about the handshakes that speak the loudest with regards to, reading into some of that body language. But what do you make of this whole boosting consumption drive? Because as you say, you could see that headline 6 months ago, 1 year ago, even 2 years ago, arguably. But what is different this time? I mean, do you really believe that they could have something up their sleeve sort of more meaningful than just a sort of trade-in consumption?
See, there's only so much they can do with this trade-in program to boost consumption, right? You can't do it forever. So the government hopes that with this program, consumption will improve and therefore will benefit some industries like household appliance manufacturers, handset manufacturers, and so on. But I think probably the most significant event in the last few months is the emergence of DeepSeek. I think it will...
More like last few weeks.
A month. Yeah, absolutely. Just a month. The mood in China has changed from one of almost despair and hopelessness to now hope and optimism.
It's very psychological, isn't it, for the Chinese markets? But, we were just speaking to an investor who sits in North America who seems to be convinced of what is going on here. And there's some say it is different this time around, but others are a bit on the fence. They're still not buying the whole stimulus thing, and they're also still worried about the disinflationary pressures and the deep structural issues that China has to sort out.
I think some of the issues are real, like for instance, the real estate meltdown, right? But it will not last forever, in my view.
And to your point, actually, we had a guest in here yesterday who actually said GDP sans real estate still looks okay.
Because the sector has shrunk the last 3 years. So as the percentage of GDP is much smaller than it was 2 years ago. But from 2026 onwards, the output from the high-tech sectors.
I want to go to live now. They're talking about the IDF saying that the body return isn't the mother. So there seems to be some discrepancy of the identity of the dead body that was returned to the IDF.
And Ben, thanks for being with us here. This was already going to be an extremely difficult and tragic day for the Israeli body politic. It's been more than 500 days since the remaining hostages have been in Hamas captivity. And I was speaking with experts like yourself earlier in this week. The Bibas family was still holding out hope, even early on in the week, that these two young children and the mother, that they were still alive. We now know that is not the case, but a wrinkle in this whole saga is that Shiri Bibas is not in now Israeli hands. Where is she? Is this a violation of the ceasefire deal?
It's absolutely a violation of the ceasefire deal. It is, as the Israelis say, a very serious one. I would add that it is absolutely grotesque as well. They have clearly sent back an anonymous body, a body that can't be identified. Now, what that says to me is that is two things. Firstly, that Hamas lied about what happened to this family. They claimed that the Bibas family were killed in an Israeli airstrike. What the forensic exam at the Abu Kabir Center in Israel has revealed, to quote them, these two children, these two small, beautiful children, were brutally murdered by their captors. And now they've returned, those bodies have been returned, but nobody knows where their mother is. And that suggests as well that the two boys were separated from their mother at some point. And they may have died, all of them died in brutal, horrible circumstances separately. So this is going to be taken extremely seriously in Israel.
So that leads me to the next question. I mean, what is Israel going to do now? I mean, are they considering options to halt the ceasefire deal? Because remember, 6 living hostages will be released on Saturday. I mean, they wouldn't do it before then. I mean, this is a true moral quandary, is it not?
It's a huge moral quandary, Andrew, and I think you're right. I think the main leverage that Hamas has in this situation are these hostages. You know, as long as they hold hostages, they have leverage. Once there are no more hostages, then there's nothing really to stop Israel from going and pursuing its goal of eliminating this group. And I think these macabre games that they're playing, as we saw today with the twist around Shiri Bibas's fate, this is partly a tactic for them to drag out this situation and prevent a major renewed Israeli offensive. But I think as well, you know, Israel has been fighting a war on multiple fronts, not just in Gaza, but in Lebanon and in the West Bank. And in fact, today, this evening, Prime Minister Netanyahu confirmed that another 3 IDF battalions would be moved to the West Bank, particularly to the northern part of the West Bank, where you have clashes going on with Hamas and with other Iranian-backed groups. So the West Bank is hotting up. And just this evening, you know, it's almost been forgotten about with the news about Shiri Bibas.
Yeah.
But 3 buses exploded in the town of Bat Yam tonight. It's just south of Tel Aviv. It was incredibly fortunate. These bombs went off prematurely. They were timed to go off at the height of rush hour tomorrow morning, which in Israeli time is just 3 or 4 hours from now. That's when they were timed to go off. So we could have had absolute carnage. So we could have had a situation where there's carnage, where Shiri Bibas's body is still withheld. But the way that Hamas is dangling this release on Saturday does restrict Israel's ability to move.
Yeah, the prime minister there, his account on social media said, following the attempt to perpetrate a chain of mass bus bombings, Netanyahu has just completed a security assessment with the defense minister, the IDF chief of staff, the ISA director, and the Israel.
I don't know the answer to this. I'm just asking the audience. Do you think that Hamas purposely gave the wrong body, or do you think that they're so disorganized that it was on accident?
No injuries or fatalities in these bus bombings, but to your point, it did look like the bombs were placed before the buses went on their own routes tomorrow morning. It looks like this is some type of bus depot or bus garage, and you can see kind of the hollowed out shell of what's left of the buses after these explosions here.
Right.
Do we know at all who may have committed these bombings today? I mean, was it Hamas? I haven't seen anyone claim responsibility or some type of insurgency there in Tel Aviv. Do we know?
I'm not aware of any of these groups formally claiming responsibility yet. But if you look at what is going on in the West Bank right now, Hamas is directing a lot of this armed activity, to some extent Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is an allied group as well. And the nature of these devices were IEDs. They were explosive devices with timers, and they are quite similar to devices that Palestinian terrorist groups have used before. I think also there was a degree of planning here, which suggests that this was an established group carrying out this attempted atrocity and not some improvised freelancer.
So, Chris, you know, I see your text message, and maybe you're right. Do you think that the bombings are associated with the failure of giving the dead body, the correct dead body, to the IDF? Or do you think it's just totally unrelated?
It can be located in the next 24 hours. Much of it will depend on how much effort Hamas is prepared to make to find out what happened here. And that's assuming that this was, you know, an honest mistake rather than something deliberate, which is a hell of an assumption to make. So I think any talk about phase two, I would confidently write that off, were it not for the fact that there are still 69 hostages there in Gaza, 33 of whom are still alive. Yeah. It's been a national imperative in Israel for nearly a year and a half to get them out. So I think that is going to be one of the key filters that Israel uses in trying to figure out what its next steps are here.
Yeah, I think moral clarity is important in a conflict like this. And so I'm just going to say it. What Hamas did today was essentially hand Israel over an anonymous corpse. I mean, does Hamas even know who it was? Because it's not Shiri Bibas, according to the IDF. And they don't know where Shiri Bibas is, or maybe they do.
It could be somebody that they plucked from the street. It could, in fact, have been one of the many dissenting Palestinians that Hamas has murdered over the last few months. A scandal that really hasn't had a huge amount of attention. But I think that what will really impact on Israelis here in terms of historical memory is, of course, you'll know, Andrew, that during the Nazi Holocaust, the spectacle of separating children from their parents on the train platforms at concentration camps was very common. There was a Nazi doctor, Josef Mengele, who carried out experiments on children and then brutally killed them. All those memories are now flooding back with the Bibas saga.
All right, Ben Cohen there with the FDD. Ben, we appreciate your insight and your expertise to this part of the world, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Andrew. Take care.
All right, in the meantime here, we do want to keep it moving with more of these top headlines, but that was a really kind of punch in the gut update to bring all of you who have followed the war between Israel and Hamas so closely. Alongside us here at Live Now from Fox for now, I believe, 503 days, and we'll continue to do it. We'll see you in 2 minutes.
Okay, while they're doing a quick break, I want to go to, I'm probably going to go to CNA, but let me just promote 2 products here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Good Night Formula. This is a great way to get regular, deep sleep. When you go to sleep, there's cycles of sleep. You got to get REM sleep and deep sleep. If you get 3 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep at night, you're well rested in the morning, you're detoxifying your body, and you're consolidating memory. Chronic sleep deprivation can lead to early onset of dementia. So please go to my store, take the Good Night formula every night. This has melatonin, tryptophan, GABA, passion flower, lots of other ingredients here for you to be healthy. One of the protocols, one of the holistic protocols here for slowing down the aging process and to boost up your immune system is proper sleep. So it's very important that you take the Good Night formula and get those 3 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. And you're going to be healing your body, detoxifying your body, your immune system will get better, and you will consolidate memory, you'll have more mental acuity, your overall health will improve. Chronic sleep deprivation will wear out your body. And not only that, you're building up toxins and you'll have elevated cortisol levels. When you have elevated cortisol levels, that's immunosuppressive. So you want to just kind of be fully rested. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Good Night formula. And Myotrol. Myotrol is a supplement you should take to build muscle and maintain muscle. It also helps with the health of the mitochondria, so you have ATP to maintain that muscle. Myotrol is designed to help with the gene expression that you need to maintain and build new muscle. Now, if you want to increase your muscle mass and maintain it, you need the building blocks. So Myotrol will help with the gene expression to build muscle. Weightlifting will be the growth signal. And the material to make the muscle is the gladiator barley because it's a high density, very high density protein. But it also has lots of other benefits. It helps to detoxify the body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. So this right here is a great combo to build muscle. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the gladiator barley and the Myotrol. Make sure that you use discount 5 so you get $5 off. I want these great products in your hands so you get healthy. All right, let's see what CNA has to say, but we might transition to another station here.
Slow down and be very, very dependent on what we really see from the Chinese administration on this front.
Yeah, and so how are you viewing Chinese AI and tech things? And as just something referring, referencing something that you mentioned, whether we could see more migration of capital from U.S. tech positions into those Chinese gigs.
You know, as someone I met this week described it, Chinese tech names are still a date, it's not a marriage. So like, it's a very tactical opportunity and it's interesting to play it because right now, I mean, that's really what is outperforming and there is potential runway there because despite the outperformance, the valuations have not become stretched yet. But again, when I come to having a more thematic or a structural play in my portfolios, I think I would be a little bit cautious until I see that March 2 sessions in China. And if there is some amount of focus on private innovation, I think that's where the story.
There's a place surrounded by snow-capped peaks with miles of skiing and riding, ones that feel like they were made just for you. Canyons Village, Park City. Plan your winter adventure today.
Trying to really get structurally more positive here.
Okay, I'm going to shift back to live now. It looks like they're talking to some
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy in California today. He held a press conference at Los Angeles' Union Station regarding California's long-delayed and slow-moving high-speed rail project, which President Trump has criticized as, quote, the worst managed project he's ever seen. Well, our colleague, Fox Business correspondent Brady Trimble, caught up with Secretary Duffy on the sidelines of that press conference. We want to show you that.
For the ones that are on X Spaces, you know, Chris asked the question, can you really trust the IDF's investigation with the bus bombings? And, you know, I'm not sure. You know, we have to be open-minded. You know, is this kind of like some sort of you know, intelligence, counterintelligence kind of thing going on with the idea? I don't know. What the impression I get when I listen to that news about the bus bombings that happened today is that it's a warning, and it reminds me of what happened in the 80s and the 90s with there were bus bombings that were taking place, if you remember. If you're, you know, you know, for the ones that are watching, if you're old enough, you'll remember there were these bus bombings and also cafe bombings in Europe and in the Middle East, to, you know, create terror. I believe the perpetrators were tied to the PLO. I'm not sure about that, but I think most of them were tied to the PLO. But that was my first reaction, was it kind of reminded me of the 80s and the 90s. All right, let's go to the secretary here.
Will spend the taxpayer money the most efficiently, and it appears that this project doesn't actually do that.
Switching gears to the aviation side, what's your response to Democrats who are giving you a hard time for letting Elon Musk into the FAA and for laying off those probationary employees?
Yeah, so what I've done is, for the FAA, I want to make sure that we have some of the brightest minds in the country come and look at the systems that the FAA uses to make sure we upgrade to the right technology and upgrade at the right speed. So SpaceX, of course we're going to have SpaceX engineers come and look at the FAA. They're, you know, again, launching rockets into space. They're catching rockets. A Tesla's been launched into space. Bright minds there. I want to hear their opinions, but it's not just SpaceX. We're gonna we put a call out and ask all bright minds to come in and give us their thoughts and analysis. So people have reached out. We're gonna have more people come in. So it's going to be a montage of the greatest minds looking at our system and talking about what are the phase priorities that we should have at the FAA to upgrade our system and make sure that our air traffic controllers have the best technology in the world in their systems, and our airspace continues to be the safest airspace in the world.
Can you give us a sense of what the technology looks like in those air traffic control towers for people who don't have the chance like yourself to visit them?
So I'll give you 2 points. The FAA uses their own internet, right? SpaceX everyone uses the internet. They have their own internet and it doesn't work. It'll go out. So their screens might go down, or their communications might go down. So we have to upgrade their system so they can actually use the internet that everyone uses.
I heard you say they're using floppy disks. Is that true?
And they're using floppy disks.
Start over. Now, if you could say that word again without laughing, good luck.
Yeah, so the FAA is using floppy disks to manage some of their systems. And again, some Gen Zers might not know what a floppy disk is, but if you're old enough, this is ancient technology. And so one of the things that's a huge problem is, think about a rotary phone.
That is crazy that they're using floppies for their systems. I mean, that's so Commodore 64. I mean, and like IBM clone, 286 kind of stuff. That's crazy. That is nuts. Now we know why the planes are falling out of the sky. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 14 or the Max 35. This is the first pillar of my health protocol of a 4-pillar process. Take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then swallow. It's going to improve your oral hygiene, also improve the health of your oral pharynx and your epithelial lining and your mucosal barrier. So it's improving your immune system, your innate immune system. Very important to do every day. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, guess what? Take a double dose. Basically what you want to do is you want to take a tablespoon then do the same thing, swish it in your mouth, gargle 20 seconds, 30 seconds, then swallow. Do about 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons a day until you feel better, and then go back to your maintenance of a teaspoon a day. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 14 and the Max 35. Get healthy, improve your immune system. Resveratrol. I've been taking resveratrol for decades, literally decades. Some people that are watching are not 30 years old. So I probably have been taking resveratrol longer than some people that are watching my shows. But all kidding aside, resveratrol is really important for mitochondrial health. It's going to help. If you improve your mitochondrial health, you're going to have more energy. This is an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals and reduce stress on the cell and your tissues. And it helps to get rid of cells that stop dividing. All right. Once cells stop dividing, they start to collect toxins, lipofuscin, and just don't perform as well. When your tissues when you get older, what happens is a lot of your tissues start building up a lot of cells that just stop dividing, and they won't go into apoptosis. This is going to help you to get rid of those cells that stop dividing. And in tissues that can regenerate, that have adult stem cells, there will be a signal to repopulate that tissue with newer cells from the adult stem cells. So your tissues and your cells will perform better because they're technically younger, because they have longer telomere lengths. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the resveratrol. Resveratrol works much better. The efficacy is much higher when you stack it with a supplement like C60, NAD+, or ubiquinol.
Rollers, cutting down the timeline in which the best scoring students to go into the academy get into the academy. They get priority, get the best teachers in place, and then get them into towers, get them trained up, get them certified.
How serious are you about potentially making that helicopter restriction by DCA permanent? Is that something you're gonna do?
So I'm incredibly serious about what we do with the airspace around DCA. There were warning signs years before, too many close calls that were taking place in that airspace. And the fact that it seemed like the rules were not well complied with. Again, flying a mission with night goggles at 9 o'clock at night, when you have aircraft in and out of DCA, that is too risky, that is too dangerous. Again, there should be exemptions for the presidential flights, for life-saving flights that come through that airspace. But there are 28 entities that fly through DCA airspace up and down the Potomac. We have to look out for the safety of the American people. And some of those missions can be flown at different times if flown at all. So
all right, I want to transition to France 24 with Netanyahu speaking about the hostage bodies being returned to Israel.
Of course, hanging over all of this is, where is Shiri Viva?
It's very emotional, and many more questions remain. While we've got you, we're going to speak of another story now, is that earlier on in the day, south of Tel Aviv, 3 buses exploded. Fortunately, no casualties reported. What can you tell us about the latest on that?
This appears to be a well-organized, massive terror attack that was botched. The only reason these 5 buses were apparently rigged so that they would blow up with bombs tomorrow morning, the start of the Israeli weekend, when people going to the beach or marketing or to meet friends for brunch would have been filling those buses. So the plan was for really a massive chain reaction attack. And the only reason it was caught is because a timer on 2 of the bombs failed, and the bombs detonated when they were empty in an empty garage. So right now we hear already the Israeli government is planning a massive operation in the West Bank, and this could of course still derail phase 2 talks for the Gaza ceasefire as well.
Moving on now to other world news, the White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz says Ukraine needs to show a deeper appreciation for what the American people and Donald Trump have done for their war effort with Russia, and referred to some of the rhetoric coming from Kyiv as unacceptable. In a further sign of heightened
All right, I
tension,
wanna go
the joint
back.
press conference in Ukraine.
I want to go back to the transportation secretary. I just wanted to get a little bit of what was going on with Israel.
On congestion pricing, are you ready to fight Governor Hochul in court? Because it sounds like
I
she's
also-
ready to fight you.
So listen, I knew Governor Hochul, she's committed to this elitist idea that you have to be rich to drive into New York City, and that poor people, middle-class people should be able to drive into the city. I know that's where she's at, but I'm committed to making sure we're fighting for middle-class Americans who paid for those roads. Those roads in New York City, they were paid for by the taxpayers of New York City, and from America. And so now to pay a toll every avenue that you get into the city, any tunnel you go through, every bridge you go into that cordoned area, you have to pay a toll. Well, you already paid for it. Now
It's not just the construction of the roads using state funds or maybe even federal funds. All right. But the thing is it's interstate commerce, because people are coming from New Jersey or Connecticut, or even, people that are upstate New York. All right. So this is preventing interstate commerce by having a toll where you can't get in to your place of employment without being taxed on the way in and on the way out. I think it's totally illegal.
If this was about congestion, that study would have been done. Maybe instead of $9 each way, would have been $5 or $4 or $6. And how much congestion comes down with that? She never did that analysis, because this is only a way through a toll to tax New Yorkers in New Jersey and Connecticut, whoever comes in the city, to tax them, so she could fund her public transit authority. So
exactly,
I think
and
that's
she's going to try to institutionalize it. Once people accept it, then the rate just keeps on going up and up and up and up and up and up. You got to kill it in the crib. Rosemary's Baby, man.
Ride a dangerous train that she created. It didn't have to be that way. And again, unacceptable. Donald Trump said, fix this. And so we're girded for battle. We'll go to court. We're going to fight for the American people to not have to pay a toll on the roads that they already paid for.
Okay, so Secretary of Transportation there,
Damn right.
Speaking with our colleague at Fox Business, Grady Trimble, about a whole host of topics. They ended there on congestion pricing. Remember, New York Governor Kathy Hochul in a press conference yesterday, we showed it to you live, coming out very strong, saying that they will fight this in court, tooth and nail, about the Trump administration and his Department of Transportation putting the kibosh on congestion pricing for now. In the meantime, here we're in a new hour. I'm Andrew Pratt. Thanks so much for being with us on this very busy Thursday night. We do have just a few more reports that we want to bring to you, and they are business related, economics related, Doge related as well. Our colleague Fox's Connor Hansen has a look at this new idea put forth by Elon Musk and the president about maybe some of the Doge savings going to the American taxpayer. Here's a look at that idea.
The new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, claims to have already made $55 billion worth of cuts. The Trump administration plans to use recovered funds to pay down the national debt or return it to the federal budget. But some have suggested a bonus for taxpayers, an idea the president says he's open to.
Could be a lot. I mean, if it's 20%, we give back a lot of money to the taxpayer. And also it would give an incentive for the taxpayer to go out and report things to us where we can save money.
The White House says the details could come out when Congress comes up with its spending bill.
The president has great confidence in both chambers to deliver on his priorities.
But critics say giving out checks will only add to inflation and urge DOGE to stay focused on its goal of reducing the deficit. The whole purpose of getting to a balanced budget and hopefully even to a surplus, let's lower the federal income tax level. A one-time $5,000 dividend check is good one time. The director of the National Economic Council defended the idea.
And so if you reduce government spending, then that's, reduces inflation. And if you give people money, then they're going to save a bunch of it. And when they save it, then that also reduces demand, reduces inflation.
There have now been layoffs or plans to lay off federal employees at about 10 different agencies, and DOGE has shown no sign of slowing down its cuts. In New York, Connor Hansen, Fox News.
Connor, thanks so much. Remember, the DOGE goal is to try to find between $1 trillion and $1.5 trillion in cuts within the federal government. So I know we're 1 month into Trump 2.0. He was sworn in 30 days ago, but it seems like they do have quite a ways to go. In the meantime, we do have a few more kind of corporate headlines. Walmart there warning about slowing sales growth. Fox Business correspondent Lauren Simonetti with more.
For the first time in 3 years, Walmart is predicting its earnings will decline this year. Shoppers have been pulling back on more expensive purchases as they budget for higher priced groceries. The retail giant is predicting sales up 3 to 4% this year, while Wall Street analysts had forecast 4.6% growth. Walmart's holiday quarter sales did top forecasts, and Chief Executive Doug McMillon says it's gaining market share, its top line is healthy, and it's in great shape with inventory. But management says they're not sure if President Trump's tariffs will take effect next month, so they did not factor that into their guidance, but are ready for tariffs nonetheless. Listen.
As we've been saying, tariffs are something we've managed for many years, and we'll just continue to manage that. We've got a great team. We know how to do that. We can't predict what will happen in the future, but we can manage it really well. And we're wired to try and save people money.
Remember, Walmart's biggest business is groceries. Much of that is produced in the United States, offering some insulation from higher tariffs, but they are not immune. The decline's rattling some investors. For the first time ever, Walmart's $180.6 billion in quarterly revenue was lower than Amazon's. That's raising concern if Walmart can continue to keep its prices low. Recent data shows consumer sentiment falling to a 7-month low as consumer prices rise the most in 2.5 years and households begin taking on more debt to get by. Still, Walmart stock has been on a tear. Shares are up 15% this year and 80% in the past year. In New York, Lauren Simonetti, Fox Business.
Lauren, thanks so much. So hope you found a few of those reports informative. We always like to cover business-related headlines here on Live Now, though we do want to take our first commercial break of this hour. When we come back, we'll be diving into the complexities of the Russia-Ukraine.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I want to talk about that third pillar. All right. The first two pillars are the Max 35 or the Max 14 to boost up your immune system. The second pillar is C60 to soak up free radicals. That third pillar is to bring down inflammation. The fourth pillar, boost up your energy levels and your metabolism with Boomer Boost. But let me show you a great stack to bring down inflammation that will help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Turmeric is an antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals, but it also brings down pro-inflammatory cytokines and calms down chronic inflammation. It's also great if you have sore muscles or you're just not feeling well and you're bringing down that inflammatory response. Ashwagandha root helps to control cortisol levels and blood glucose levels. It's a great way to help with people that are like borderline diabetic or diabetic and you want to bring down those glucose levels. But chronic levels of cortisol is really bad for your immune system. And it creates this inflammatory response. And not only that, you age faster with elevated cortisol levels. This is part of the reason why if you are not sleeping well, your cortisol levels are higher and you age faster. So you want to bring down those cortisol levels to help your immune system and you'll slow down the aging process, but you'll also, with ashwagandha root, help to control your blood glucose levels. Extremely important when you get older. Remember what I said about your pancreas. When you get older, your pancreas doesn't work as well. Well, your pancreas makes insulin, and insulin takes that glucose level that's in your blood and puts it into cells. So it's very important to take ashwagandha root with the turmeric to bring down that inflammatory response. and lignans. This is a powder. You mix it with soft foods like hummus or yogurt, applesauce, whatever. Or you can put it in a smoothie or just mix it with filtered water. It's up to you. I put it in a soft food like hummus. You get a little scooper here, take 1 scoop a day. It's very powerful. And lignans, they'll bring down inflammation and soak up free radicals. It's a very powerful stack to improve your cardiovascular health and your immune system by taking the lignans, the ashwagandha root, and the turmeric together. All right. Now, why does it help the cardiovascular system? By bringing down inflammation, you're reducing the signal to develop plaque. The first part of plaque buildup is inflammation that does damage to the intima of your blood vessels. That's the first step. Well, if you bring down inflammation, you're reducing the chances of building up the plaque. So that's how this works. But also the antioxidant part of lignans and turmeric will help to soak up free radicals in your bloodstream to reduce the chances of oxidizing LDL. And LDL oxidized is what is the beginning part of the plaque. Plaque is oxidized LDL that's eaten up by a macrophage that turns into a foam cell and just sits there in a hardened state. And that's what we call plaque. But if you reduce the free radicals, you reduce the LDL, you reduce the inflammation, you're reducing cardiovascular disease. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get this combo, the stack. It's a great stack. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. I want you to get healthy. I want your immune system to be as robust as possible. And I don't want you to die from cardiovascular disease. Get the stack, pay attention to what I do, and get healthy. It's in your power. All right. Let's go back to live now here.
Rebecca, thanks so much. We have a live picture there on the Senate floor. I just want to make you aware of something that Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, the Democrat, is doing. He just got back from Ukraine in a congressional delegation. But he plans to call up an amendment tonight that says that it's the sense of the Senate that Russia, not Ukraine, started the war. Obviously, that's a direct response to Trump saying this week that Ukraine started the war. Reporters are told the language will be as simple as possible in order to get Republican votes. So that's coming in from Andrew Desiderio there, reporter on Capitol Hill. In the meantime, let's bring into the conversation our friend and colleague, national security analyst and expert, and retired Marine intelligence officer Hal Kemper. He joins me. Hal, thanks for being with us here. I know you're traveling, but you have, I know, a lot of thoughts on some of the language that President Trump is using. What is going on here? Is it productive for talks to get to some type of settlement to end the war in Ukraine for this, I'm going to call it a fight, playing out so publicly between Trump and Zelensky?
Well, Andrew, obviously it's everyone who's sitting back and watching this back and forth feels very uncomfortable. It's obviously a stark change with our relationship with Ukraine, prior to the Trump administration coming into office. So that's caught everyone's attention. However, with that said, all right, there have been a number of sidebar conversations. Keith Kellogg has said a number of things that basically indicate that there is a strategy here. If I may just kind of stand back a little bit, it looks like trying to create some sort of comfort zone or space, maybe to engage the Russians more constructively into some sort of discussion, and that's why they're doing a lot of things. I mean, obviously everyone's kind of scratching their heads on if you're trying to blame Zelensky for the invasion or something like that. It's a bit perplexing. But it is what Putin's talking points are. There's actually some work right now where they're trying to pull back language, condemnatory language of Russian aggression from the G7, pending G7 communique. There's a joint communique that even comes out of the G7. And there was some discussion a while back President Trump was reportedly had mentioned the fact that maybe there might be a G8, which would mean bringing Russia back into the fold of this thing. So it might be a strategy, negotiation strategy, to create a certain comfort zone for the Russians to more constructively engage. Now, what isn't quite clear is how strong the Russian pushback was initially. You know, President Trump campaigned on, you know, he was going to get the end of the war. You know, I believe he said the first day of office that he was going to make it happen. Well, that obviously hasn't occurred. And Putin was pushing back. So maybe this is to create a certain comfort zone for Putin and the Russians to engage more constructively. Obviously, it's causing phenomenal antagonism with Ukraine, and anyone in Congress, certainly that supports Ukraine, is feeling very uncomfortable with where this has gone.
So we were just showing some of the video from earlier today there in Kyiv. That is General Keith Kellogg. He's Trump's special envoy on Russian and Ukrainian matters, talking with Zelensky, and apparently, according to Reuters, at the White House's request, according to Ukrainian leadership, this joint press conference that was going to take place between Zelensky and Kellogg was canceled last minute here. Was that a good idea? Due to some of the very public tensions going on right now, do they need to calm the waters here and cool their jets, Hal?
I think you actually called it. That's exactly what it is look, they know what's going to happen in a press conference. They're going to get hit with a bunch of very pointed questions. They're going to get hit with all the questions that are going to try and zero in on the you know, antagonism, if you will, or certainly the war of words between President Zelensky and President Trump. And they're going to put Keith Kellogg in a very difficult spot as President Trump's envoy there. So basically, I think they kind of sat back and said, look, let's just avoid that whole spectacle. What I had heard was, or what I've seen, is that it was a very constructive dialogue. In fact, President Zelensky came out and made remarks and said he felt much more comfortable with where the Trump administration was going after talking to Keith Kellogg. And that's not the first time I've heard that. That was the same thing when Keith Kellogg was in Europe. There was a lot of discussion where a number of our allies felt a little bit more reassured after talking to Keith Kellogg. You know, it's not unusual. You know, I've spent a lot of time overseas in uniform way back when. Many times you will see that there's this that's happening in, you know, the information space, if you will, that's the public domain, and then there's things going on directly with the country, and they're not completely different, but they're substantially different many times. And you find it's like they're saying, "Oh, don't do this," and it's like, well, we are actually doing this, but okay, if you want to say that publicly, that's fine. So that might be part of what we're seeing here is some of this might be negotiating in public, and some of this might be to basically maybe help the Russians feel more comfortable with engaging. It's possible.
Okay, Hal, what if it's not, though? I mean, what if President Trump, you know, truly believes that Ukraine started the war and that Zelensky is a dictator? Is this a marked shift in language from candidate Trump to President Trump? I mean, did he say these things on the campaign trail? I'm getting that question a lot. You know, what was his stated position on how he was going to handle the war, other than should have never started. If I was president, it would never have started, and we're going to end it on day one. Was this a shift? And does he actually mean it?
You know, I never heard him call President Zelensky a dictator on the campaign trail, and that maybe I just didn't hear it. I don't recall him ever saying that. Obviously, on the campaign trail, he had talked about constructive engagement with Russia, and it mentioned they had a good relationship with Putin. That is not something new. That's something that we've heard before. This big shift in U.S. policy, you know, I think a lot of people were feeling that maybe this wasn't going to happen. That maybe what he was saying on the, you know, the fear was that he would turn around and you know, basically shift the focus as deciding what the Russians want as opposed to what Ukraine wants, and that seems to be playing out in public. So, you know, your question really, you know, about whether this is real, it's tough to say what is ground truth in these matters when things are playing so publicly like this. You know, some of it is, you know, I'm just gonna let you in on something. President Trump knows a lot about the entertainment industry, and he knows how to get attention, and he knows how to focus people on a question. And one thing I've seen time and time again, I mean, we were having a discussion a couple weeks ago about the 25% tariffs with Canada and Mexico.
Sure.
And that lasted, I think, from it's going to be implemented to within 24 hours it's off. We've got a deal in place, and it's not going to happen. So I kind of wonder where this is all going. The facts of the matter, though, on the ground, 3 years afterwards, the facts of the matter is Ukraine is still holding ground. They're still actually doing quite well in certain categories. Yeah, they're not able to hold off all the Russians, but the Russians are only making gains at phenomenal losses, and Russia can't sustain those losses.
Okay.
They're having a terrible time with that. And economically, and this is what's been coming out the last few months, is the Russian economy is in far worse shape than most realize. And there's big questions as to whether there might be something akin to a Russian economic collapse in 2025 if things don't dramatically change. And President Trump, or at least members of his administration, I think President Trump himself actually referenced that Putin and Russia was in much worse shape than most realize.
Yeah. Hal, I would argue as well, and bring this up, I'd be remiss. Zelensky, he's an entertainer too. Trump called him a modestly successful comedian, but he knows at least how Ukrainian showbiz works. Hal, just lastly here, National Security Advisor.
Let me quickly go over a stack to help with your bone health and your cardiovascular health. Taking K2 and D3 together and doing resistance training and taking in calcium either through a supplement or drinking milk. I drink milk. Will help you to build bone density and strengthen your joints. All right. Now, it's really important though that you're doing the resistance training and taking the D3 and the K2 to absorb the calcium, but also it helps to allow for the depositing of this calcium in your bone matrix. So over time, you start building more bone density. This is really important, not just for males, but especially females, because once a female goes postmenopausal, you lose a lot of minerals from your bones. And over time, your bones start to become brittle. So it's really important to take calcium, take the D3 and the K2 and do some resistance training on all of your your bones. All right. So that means lots of different exercises. You also need to do stretching, balancing exercises, and do a little bit of cardio. But for bone density, doing weight training is really important. Males and females, but especially females. Another thing that's really important that people don't realize is that you need to improve your back muscles, because over time, when you get older, you start to slouch, and that affects blood flow, but also lymph flow. And the lymph goes into your lymph nodes, and you need good flow so your immune system works better and you're getting rid of toxins. But if you're hunched over, you're impeding on that proper flow. So you want to improve your posture by improving your back muscles. That's for males and females. All right. Not only that, when you improve your back posture and with improving the musculature of your back, you're also going to have a better alignment with your spine. So you're not going to have that slow crunching of the spinal column when you get older. So do some resistance training. Make sure you're building higher density bone structure. Take the D3 and the K2 together and take calcium to do that. Now, in terms of cardiovascular health, taking the D3 and the K2 is going to prevent calcium depositing around plaque that's already formed. Many plaques, you'll notice that there are calcium deposits. Well, you want to pull that out and prevent it from depositing. So take the D3 and the K2 together to do that. I have a whole protocol on how to actually reduce plaque buildup and how to shrink the plaque that's already built up. It's called the Longevity Cardiovascular Box. It has lots of different supplements in it. Two of the supplements are D3 and K2. So take a look at that to really supercharge your cardiovascular health. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Now, it's really important to take ubiquinol when you get older to protect your neurons. It also is an antioxidant to soak up free radicals, and it boosts up your energy levels because it helps to improve the health of your mitochondria. So take ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the highest bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can buy. This is extremely high quality product. Please go to my store and get the ubiquinol. Take it every day to protect your neurons. NAC is something I've added to my stack. Why? Because there are many anti-aging individuals that have built up their own stacks for their own health, and they've been getting a lot of positive benefits from NAC. So I looked into it. And what is happening with NAC is that you're soaking up more free radicals because you're boosting up your glutathione pathway. Glutathione soaks up free radicals, and it's synergistic with C60. So the more ways that you soak up free radicals, the more pathways that you use, like superoxide dismutase soaks up free radicals, glutathione soaks up free radicals, C60 soaks up free radicals, resveratrol soaks up free radicals. So the more ways that you're soaking up free radicals, the better off you are to slow down this aging process. All right. But also you're boosting up your energy levels. So when you're boosting up your energy levels, you just have more vitality. And when you have more vitality, you naturally will have more musculature. You'll lose weight. You'll be more leaner. You'll have higher bone density because you're just moving around more. Now, NAC also helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney, especially if you take acetaminophen. And NAC also helps to calm your central nervous system and reduce anxiety. That's really important to keep those glutathione. That's really important to keep the cortisol levels down so it's not immunosuppressive. So you want to be in parasympathetic mode as much as possible. Keep a good resting heart rate. Keep the cortisol levels down, right? And then boost up your glutathione levels to soak up those free radicals. It's a great supplement. And this is a reason why many people that were, tweaking their anti-aging protocol and getting really positive results from it. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAC. And NAD plus is important to take. It boosts up your energy levels. It helps to heal your DNA because when you get older, you accumulate DNA damage. Now, we have repair mechanisms to repair that DNA damage, but you can overload your system just by more DNA damage as you get older. Well, you need to take supplements to be able to help to help your body repair the DNA damage. But you don't just get DNA damage in your cells. You also have mitochondrial DNA damage. So if you notice that improving your mitochondrial health is a major component of improving your immune system and slowing down the aging process. So NAD plus is going to help repair that DNA damage in the cell and in your mitochondria. In addition, NAD plus helps to protect your neurons. This is synergistic with the ubiquinol to protect neurons. Now, when you get 40 plus years of age, you need to start paying attention to neural protection because people start getting, gait issues at age 65. They start having shakes in their hand. At 65 or 70, they start showing signs of Parkinson's. They have memory loss. You don't want that. So protect your neurons with the ubiquinol and the NAD plus. But not just that, make sure you look at this holistically. It's not just taking supplements. It's also doing exercising. It's not just weight training. It's also doing cardio and balancing exercise and stretching. Those are all really important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. get these great supplements that I offer. Use discount 5, you get $5 off. Everything I carry on my store is high quality. It's what I take. Obviously, it's working. All right. You listen to some of these other gurus, and they look like they're aging. But the reality of the situation is that I've been tweaking this whole anti-aging thing since I was 16 years old. So I've learned a lot through that process, on top of learning about medicine and the research that I did for my master's degree. But the reality of the situation here is that it is in your power through a holistic approach to actually get healthier and target certain systems and improve cardiovascular health, improve your gut health, improve your mind, your brain health, improve your liver, improve your kidney, improve your skin, improve your endocrine system, your exocrine system, your immune system. It is in your power to do. And most chronic diseases in Western society are self-induced lifestyle issues. Like in the United States, diabetes and heart disease, most of the time, is self-induced. Most of the time. All right, let's go to live now. They're talking about the removal. Hochul is not going to remove Mayor Adams yet.
And so people kind of focus on that latter point, and they kind of focus on, so what, you got upgraded to a first class flight, but some people also see that is, a little unfair to maybe your average person. But when it comes to those soliciting illegal campaign donations, that triggered public money. And so that means that taxpayer money was used, and that's what federal prosecutors were accusing Adams of, is stealing public money. Now, of course, they have moved to drop these criminal charges against Adams without prejudice, which means that these charges could be brought back again at any point. But, I think for the most part, people are aware. And, right now in city government, especially with those 4 deputy mayors having resigned, they really have the confidence of a lot of people in City Hall. And so I think seeing those people depart really shook the confidence of a lot of leaders to see what's next with Adams. Of course, he's going to have to decide what's next for those 4 roles. And that's one of the things Hochul mentioned today, is that she is going to be pressuring Adams to first go to her about any of these deputy mayors before he appoints anyone new in these roles.
Yeah, of course, we're still waiting for that federal judge to sign off on the dismissal of the indictment. So there's still a lot to watch for in this story. And we'll rely, as we have been, on you, Morgan. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, back on live there to New York City, outside the Fox News World headquarters in Midtown Manhattan. But Morgan and I did that as a pre-recorded segment, and in the interim, we have heard now from New York City Mayor Eric Adams in a statement responding to Governor Hochul today, her decision not to remove him from the office. Let's put this up here. Okay, so Adams saying this in a statement, I'm going to read it in full. I was elected by the people of New York City and its working class communities to uphold their values. And that is what our administration has done. While there is no legal basis for limiting New Yorkers' power by limiting the authority of my office, I have told the governor, as we have done in the past, that I am willing to work with her to ensure faith in our government is strong. I look forward to continuing those conversations. So, short, pithy statement there from Mayor Adams, but as always, as he has been, defiant. Nonetheless, moving forward, there you heard from Adams. In the meantime here, let's watch this a little bit from earlier in replay. Governor Hochul with that announcement.
Posting a photo of the president attired like a king, as well as a message declaring that indeed he was the king. He did this when he attempted to undermine the duly elected laws of our state related to congestion pricing. I reference this again today for one reason. We fought a war 250 years ago to depose a king who tried to impose his will on a young country. We don't have a king today because it conflicts with the very genius of a democracy, where the voices and the votes of the people, not a king, not a queen, and not a governor, should prevail. Voters determine who they want or who they do not want to represent them in elective office. As I said last week, I was deeply troubled by the accusations leveled at Mayor Eric Adams, not just the initial indictment, but also the more recent allegation of a quid pro quo with the Trump administration. For days, I've been deeply involved in discussions with my closest advisors, city leaders, electeds, clergy, business, labor, civic leaders, all people whose opinions that matter to me because they care about our city. I consulted them and legal advisors on whether it's appropriate and necessary at this moment to exercise the power granted to me as the governor of the state of New York by the New York State Constitution and the City of New York Charter to remove a mayor from office. I've also heard from many voices of New Yorkers who feel outraged, who feel hurt, betrayed by what they have seen. And I want those New Yorkers to know and understand those feelings as well. After careful consideration, I've determined that I will not commence removal proceedings at this time. My strong belief is that the will of the voters and the supremacy and sanctity of democratic elections preclude me from any other action. I cannot deny the people of this great city the power to make this decision for themselves. And to those who conclude this decision is due to pressure, many groups or individuals, I say this: you do not know me. Constant pressure, so I deal with all day long. And it's absolutely no bearing on any decisions I make. I will say this: I also have concerns about disruption and chaos that such a move, such a proceeding could bring to the residents of this great city. And those who argue just go and remove them fail to appreciate there is a process involved, due process, the length of the process, and the impact that such a process would have on this city. And actually with the timing, it's not impossible that we have a scenario where there's multiple mayors of this city in the course of 1 year. But make no mistake, the current situation is one that I take very seriously. That's why I want to spell out my immediate objectives. Number one, to stabilize the city and restore calm. Number two, ensure that all services for our residents continue without disruption.
I swear I'm living in Gotham, like a Batman comic book.
And three, to take steps to make sure our leaders are operating only with the city's best interest in mind, unimpeded by any legal agreements with the Trump Justice Department. I want to be very clear. There are past examples of coordination and cooperation between the federal government, the city, the state. It's not uncommon. But there's a clear line between cooperation and coercion. Given how aggressive the Trump administration has been, including its attempt yesterday to dismantle a previously approved congestion pricing program, and how deeply disturbing the comments.
But that was approved by someone that didn't have their full mental faculties, aka President Biden. And if the president can approve it, why can't another president decline it? So I don't understand the logic there. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, avocado oil, or extra virgin olive oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. C60 has to be in a lipid so you can absorb it properly. Take it on an empty stomach for best absorption. If you're going to work out, take it before your workout so you'll soak up the free radicals that you're creating during your workout. But not just that, you're going to recover quicker. All right. Your recovery time is improved. Now, C60 soaks up free radicals. It's very potent, and it'll also help to improve the health of your mitochondria. So your ATP is going to go up. You're going to have lots of energy. Now, Oscar was talking about, how to improve your energy. C60 is a great way to do it, but also taking B vitamins. I stay away from these, quick energy type liquids or, quick energy drinks. I stay away from that stuff. Just listen to my protocol and you'll have sustained energy levels throughout the day. Now, C60 will soak up the free radicals, boost up the health of the mitochondria. And so what will happen is your cells will have less stress. They'll perform better. They'll have the energy they need. And then your tissues will perform better and your organ systems will perform better. And over time, what's going to happen is that your endocrine system is going to be better. Your exocrine system is going to be better. Your immune system is going to be better. You're going to be thinking better. Your energy levels are higher. C60 helps with the health of your neurons because it's improving the mitochondria that's in your neurons. You have lots of mitochondria in your neurons to produce the neurotransmitters and to release those neurotransmitters. So if you want positive neuroplasticity, it behooves you to actually get the C60. So you're bringing down the stress levels of those neurons and improving the mitochondria. When you get older, the mitochondria starts to weaken. And when you have less ATP in those neurons, they're producing less neurotransmitters, they're firing less, and eventually they start to decline. And so you get negative neuroplasticity. What happens is they start to recede. That's the technical term is actually depression. But your neuron actually recedes and you don't have many connections. So your memory goes down, you're thinking slower. If you look at someone that's really old, they usually think slower, they talk slower, they may not understand you that well. That's because they have less neural connections and their mitochondria are damaged and they're not functioning as well and not producing as much ATP as they used to. The whole key to this is bring down the stress levels on the cells and the tissues and boost up the energy levels by improving the mitochondrial health. If you look at someone that's older, they have low ATP. You look at someone that's young, like a 2-year-old, they're running around because they have tons of ATP. You look at a puppy, it has lots of ATP. You look at an old dog and it's just sitting there all day long, doesn't have so much ATP. Take my advice, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the C60. This is very potent. I take a teaspoon a day. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. And you're going to see huge benefits in your health, and you're going to be slowing down the aging process and boosting up your immune system. So please go to my store, use discount 5 and you get $5 off. And lastly, to answer Oscar's question about energy levels, a great way to boost up your energy and have a steady concentration of that energy throughout the day is to take Boomer Boost, right? It has 68 nutrients. This is a meal, all right? You either take it for your breakfast or for your lunch, mix it with soft foods or with filtered water or with milk or a shake, like a smoothie or something like that. You're going to lose weight. You're going to have more energy. A lot of people, when they lose weight, they don't have energy until they get into ketosis. But the thing is that within 72 hours, you're going to see big benefits in your energy levels and your sleep pattern. Now, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take a look at the label. There's lots of compounds that are in this powder. You get a big scooper, Take one scoop a day, every day, either for breakfast or for lunch. It works better if you mix it with also the Gladiator barley or the heirloom barley, but you don't have to. And what will happen is your cardiovascular system is going to improve, your heart's going to improve, you're going to improve your strength and your muscle health, you're going to improve your brain function, you're going to boost up your energy levels and your metabolism. And this is way cheaper, I'm sure, for 1 month's supply. It's way cheaper than how much you spend for breakfast or for lunch. And you're going to lose weight and get healthy. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Boomer Boost, take it every day. It's part of the 4th pillar of the core protocol that I've been talking about. The first pillar is max 35, boost up your immune system, or max 14. C60 is the second pillar, soak up free radicals. Bring down inflammation is the third pillar with turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans. And the 4th pillar is Boomer Boost. Boost up your metabolism and skyrocket your energy levels. So if you want to improve your health, follow my protocol. Maybe you can't afford everything, but you can mix and match from things that I've talked about to improve your health. It is in your power. It's a holistic approach. It's not just supplementation. It's not just exercise. It's not just breathing exercises. It's not just meditation. You know, it's a holistic approach. If you approach this holistically, you are going to get healthier. No doubt about it. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Let's continue on with the Wicked Witch of Albany.
Since borders were, we know they'll stop at nothing to try and exercise control over New York. That is the fight we had yesterday. That is the fight we have today. And that is the fight I want to take on for the next 1,430 days. To move this city forward.
Let's get straight. It was the Democratic Party that is sieging New York and their never-ending control of New York City. And they get all pissed off that they have a mayor that's actually aligning with a Republican. Heaven forbid.
The implementation of certain guardrails that I believe are a first start in reestablishing trust for New York City residents, and ensure that all decisions out of City Hall are in the clear interest of the people of this city and not at the behest of the president. I'm proposing 3 immediate actions which I believe will help protect New Yorkers. First, I'm proposing legislation to create a special Inspector General for New York City affairs within the office of the State Inspector General. The State Inspector General will be able to direct New York City Department of Investigations. And the mayor will only be able to remove the Department of Investigations Commissioner with the approval of the State Inspector General. This will protect the city's investigations from any interference. Make sure that there's no.
So she's creating more bureaucracy. Honestly, she looks scared. She looks scared. There's an element of her, the way she's talking, that shows lack of confidence and that she has a fear in her. Trump scares her. Now why? I don't know, but there's fear in her.
As they make their determinations, and allow the Inspector General to focus more directly on any improper activity that may arise out of New York City. We'll also give reports to us. We'll have access to information. Second, I'm proposing giving the city controller, the public advocate, and the New York City Council Speaker an independent authority, the clarified independent language to commence litigation against the federal government when necessary and using outside counsel. The city's law department will still have the opportunity to initiate legal actions within 7 days of any request. But the whole of city government should not be reliant on City Hall for legal cases where the people of the city may be under attack by the federal government. Third, I'm expanding funding for the Office of the Deputy State Controller General, Controller for City Oversight. Because this stepped up oversight, again, gives us an independent line of sight into potential decisions related to the federal government. This we paid for by city receipts.
You mean city taxpayers? Guess what? She sounds like she's creating a bureaucracy to stonewall Trump's administration and to try to slow down ICE in deporting the illegal immigrants. That's what she's doing. And then I guess I'm willing to bet that, and this might be the reason why she's scared, Doge looking into what's going on with these agencies and where the money's flowing. I'm willing to bet that there's a paper trail of corruption for certain items that goes all the way to New York that's tied to illegal immigrants, illegal immigration. She looks scared and she's setting up a bureaucracy to try to stonewall Trump's administration.
Once these measures are enacted, they'll be effective immediately and expire at the end of 2025, subject to renewal. I've already discussed these proposals with the city council speaker and the speaker of the state assembly and the majority leader of the New York State Senate. I also told the mayor that strong managers need to be identified to fill the roles of the deputy mayors before they become vacant, and that we in my administration, with strong relationships that we have, will work to accomplish that goal and do whatever he can to keep his key commissioners. I want to take a moment to put this all in context. New York is facing a grave threat from Washington. The Trump administration has said it's already trying to use the legal jeopardy facing our mayor as leverage to squeeze and punish our city. The president's already.
The problem is there's an existential threat to this, to our livelihood and our lives, literally, when we take the MTA in New York because of failed Democratic policies in the city of New York and in Albany. Are you kidding me? And she's worried about Trump. She literally is the governor. And on her watch, people are literally burnt alive on the subway train while no one cares.
And undermine our state sovereignty. I call it the Trump revenge tour, and I have to stand in its way. Not surprising, he's taking out his anger and frustration over the 35 felony convictions he received here in the state of New York, taken out on our own New Yorkers.
Oh, let's not pretend that the Democratic Party wasn't using lawfare to try to prevent Trump from becoming president. But last night, we talked about how Trump and Elon may actually be helpers of the Messianic era, based on Torah scholars. I would love to know what that rabbi would have thought of Hochul. Maybe she is the Antichrist.
Will be the vanguard against harm to our state and our people, and nothing will stand in our way. Once I've made a decision, I execute it. Work hard to make it work. My decisions say do not come lightly, but the path forward for me is clear. I will retain the powers conferred upon me by the New York State Constitution, the city charter, but it's my sincere hope that these dark days will pass, elections will occur, and the people.
Wait a minute, we had lawfare going on with Trump that probably will be overturned in appeals court because of the way they did the way they did the instructions to the jury about porn star payments that were considered legal expenses for a tune of what, $130,000, $160,000? You gotta be kidding. That's That's the shit that is happening on a daily basis in Gotham.
New York will decide who they trust to govern this extraordinary city. And we can remain laser focused and united against the storm clouds that are swirling 226 miles away in our nation's capital. My eyes are on the city, the state, and on Washington. And I'm ready and prepared to take on any fight against any threats to the well-being of our residents.
Oh, so this is really a fight against getting rid of the illegal aliens. This is a fight where she's going to try to stonewall ICE. So the implicit understanding of her comments would be she's supporting these gangs that are running rampant in Gotham. But the bigger question is, why does she look scared? She's talking like she's scared. Now, remember what the rabbi said last night when I played his video. And it's like, there are certain people that have a special ability to get stuff done, all right? And there's a blessing that happens. You know, and Elon and Trump have that blessing. But they also create a fear with the people that they're fighting. She has a fear in her right now. Just like what the rabbi said.
Any questions?
Hold on. Let's start right here. You talk about the will of the people. The will of the people gave you the power to move matter. It seems like a little bit of an awkward look around to use the power of the people.
So you're saying it's better to ignore the provisions in our Constitution that call for free and fair elections? No, we have elections in our country and in our state. It's what separates us out from places where they do actually have kings and dictators. This is something I take very seriously. And it is up to the voters of this great city to determine who they want to continue as their leader or bring in a new leader. It is up to them. That is a sacred right that they.
I don't know why they're going after Adams for upgrades on business upgrades on Delta. See, there's a common theme here. There is a lawfare that takes place on stuff that's really stupid, like porn star payments and upgrades on airlines. All right, when you don't play ball with the deep state. That's the common theme.
I will not deny them that.
And kind of like spoken to the mayor, are you confident he'll choose experience with professionals as opposed to sort of combative or one of those like have nothing for 50 healthcare crisis? You're confident with him, what you say, how do you feel about these proposed changes?
You can ask him how he feels about these proposed changes, but I explained that this is an opportunity to install safeguards that we need to have in place to give people confidence that there's only one factor in every decision that's made, and that's what's best for the people of the city. And he has to earn that. And there's an opportunity to do that. I also have a strong team here. They have incredibly tight relationships with the mayor's team. And that constant communication is part of why there's
no. What she's trying to do is create a bureaucracy to wedge between Adams and Trump to be able to deport these illegal aliens because it goes against the Democratic agenda. Now, I said there's a financial reason why they have these illegal aliens. There's also a power grab because New York State's hemorrhaging citizens. So that means that in Congress, in Washington, D.C., over time, they're going to lose seats. They're going to lose representation to other states because we're declining in population. because, you know, when it's a blue state, everyone wants to get out of it because it's overtaxed. You know, it's run by a bunch of woke people.
All, and why that's what we're shooting for right now. So he's offered to work with us if we have recommendations on people, et cetera. But I want to make sure that the commissioners stay as well. It's early.
No, what they're trying to do is pressure. The way I take this is they're trying to pressure Adams to give up, which I don't think he will, and to align himself so he survives politically closer to the Democratic Party instead of Trump when it comes to this whole forced deportation stuff. This is, I cannot believe we are living in these times. Literally, we will sit back, you know, hopefully with, you know, there's no nuclear explosion in the interim, but, you know, we're going to look back 10 years from now and we're going to go, the best years of our life were actually those last 4 years of Trump's era.
It is up to an individual to decide if they want to leave from office at any time. No, you did not phrase my answer correctly. It is not up to me to tell them to leave. It is up to an individual if they want to resign the office to which they've been elected.
But you're creating a
I'm
bureaucracy.
working to put in safeguards to restore the trust that is necessary to get the city back focused out of all this controversy and get people in New York City what they want. They just want normalcy again. And that's what I'm fighting to restore.
She's creating a bureaucracy to wedge between Adams and Trump.
I use the phrase at this time.
She used the phrase at this time. She's not going to, she's using at the phrase. I'm using at this time. I'm not going to force him out because she knows that her political career will go up in smoke when that happens. But just remember, she was the lieutenant governor for Cuomo, and Cuomo is trying to reboot his political career to be the next mayor of New York, and I'm sure that's going to go real well. Hopefully, we don't have another pandemic.
I'm not going to say at this time. I need to see what the court happens, but I also, as I said, it is my duty as the governor of the state to make sure I'm aware of what's going on, that if there's problems, that I intercede, but otherwise these are duly elected officials who have jobs to do as well.
The mayor and Trump discussed putting ice back in Reykjavik. So with all these things forward, would that stop that? What conditions would you allow that to stop that?
This becomes a question of whether or not that complies with the city charter and city ordinances. And that's something I'll be watching. Listen.
All right, you've been listening there to New York Governor Kathy Hochul explaining some of the reasoning behind why she is not asking New York City Mayor Eric Adams to step down from the office. Remember, she, as governor of the state of New York, has that power, but she has said that she wants to see legislative reforms in Albany. She wants to see more oversight from the state level over City Hall there in the Big Apple. Well, I'm Andrew Pratt. Thanks so much for being with us.
I want a bureaucracy that will slow down the Trump administration, because the way Trump is working is he's saying Albany is not going to play ball with Washington, D.C., especially with the executive branch. Okay. It doesn't matter because all of the population is New York City. So as long as he has a mayor that's willing to play ball, he can get ICE to do their operations. It's that simple. All right. We've already hit the 10 o'clock mark here. Please help support my work. Go to my store, get the products. You can also donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee, or be a paid member to my Patreon channel. It is through people helping, purchasing the products, donating, sharing the links, asking their social media to follow me, because every time I do a live stream, every time I do a post on my large channel, YouTube bleeds me, and eventually I will just evaporate. And when I evaporate, who's going to save you from H5N1? A celebrity doc, like the wizard, Dr. Wizard of Oz, or Dr. Drew. You really think they're going to save you? I doubt it. So please help support my work, or I just evaporate. Thank you for listening. For the ones on X Spaces, and for the ones that have been watching the live stream on YouTube, I greatly appreciate it, especially the ones that ask the questions in the chat box. We'll do another transmission tomorrow. Everyone have a good night. Oh, Don is requesting. All right. Let me give Don a little bit of airtime here before we shut down. Hello? You there? Yeah. Hi. How you doing?
And I had one question.
Yeah.
The guy last night talked about redemption at the 3 stages.
Yeah.
Do you recall what the stages were again?
Are you talking about the state? Are you talking about the 3 different messiahs? Are you talking about the 4 state? He had 4 stages in his intro, and then the 3, the sequence of events for the Messianic era. So which part of
he was talking about the evil will have to be eliminated, and then something along the lines that we will move to a higher state of being.
Right.
And then there was the 3rd phase, and I was wondering what the 3rd phase again was.
Well, I'll go back to the video and write it down, and then do my next show, and I'll reiterate it. But from my memory, what it is that you have to find the evil, then you have to kill the evil, and then once you kill the evil, then it sets in motion to be able to rebuild the temple. So that's, I think, the line of thought that he had. But he parlayed that with the concept of there is the Messiah of Edom, and then there is the Messiah of Joseph, and then there's the Divinic Messiah, which when someone hears Messiah, that's the Divinic line. Most people don't know that there are actually 2 other types of Messiahs that have to happen first. They're like helpers. They're not the Messiah, they're a Messiah. So my recollection to his steps were that you had to find the evil, kill the evil, that sets in motion to rebooting the machine, as I call it. But I'll go back to the video, and I'll take notes again. And there were, in his intro, there was actually 4 steps, if I remember right, when he was reading from his notes. And then he transitioned into this concept of there are different there's a sequence of messiahs that happen.
Yeah, the other thing I find interesting to get rid of the evil, to eliminate the evil, that seems like it has to happen through either the judicial system or it would be through the military. And the questioning whether or not part of that evil is what we're seeing with perhaps the military being used to go after the cartels.
Yeah.
Because there was an interview with Bukele in El Salvador, and he was mentioning about Satanism within these cartel gangs, and they were sacrificing kids. I mean, it's just pure evil.
Right, and even on the MTA, there's this gang that is of youth that are female, that are like almost like they're possessed, and they're literally dancing around after they steal items or stab people on the train or whatever. So there is a demonic thing that's happening. So, but the way he described it is that the during that period of time of the Messiah of Edom, which he is saying is Elon and Trump, they expose the evil. Then there's a new group that comes in that is Messiah of Joseph. That's also two people that galvanize to kill. And then that sets in motion the divinic Messiah. Now, the question is one of, it could be that on that third stage where there is the divinic line, David was a Messiah of Joseph that turned into a Messiah of David, because it was in the rabbi's commentary, he was saying that it was Saul and David overcame Saul and he became the Messiah. All right, and caused the messianic line. But because David killed so many people, it was his son Solomon that actually allowed for the temple to be rebuilt, because you can't have all this spilt blood. So to get back to your point, it seems to me that there's going to be a major battle that goes beyond what Trump and Elon's doing. Because I'll rewind the rabbi's commentary, but it seemed as though Trump and Elon are really to expose it, maybe do some legal reorganization, but the battle where there's a lot of death, that's the killing of Esau, I don't think that is through the Messiah of Edom. I thought that was the Messiah. That's the Messiah through Joseph. The two Messiahs that are tied to the Messiah of Joseph. Now, it's possible that one of those Messiahs of Joseph ends up being part of the divinic lineage that ends up being the Messiah of David. Or it could be just a new Messiah that comes out that is what we consider the Messiah, that's totally not part of the Messiah of Joseph. I know that sounds kind of complex, with people that don't realize that there are actually multiple Messiahs going on here. They're like helpers. But my memory serves me that the rabbi had there was 4 stages before he started talking about the Messiahs.
Yeah, that was my thought too, is to have how the type of people that would say enact the justice or the righteous retribution, so to speak, in a whatever manner they.
And the thing is that it's not necessary. There can be actually there's nothing that's saying that the Messiah of Edom is not alive at the same time as the Messiah of Joseph. The Messiah of Joseph may be alive right now, sitting in the wings, waiting to be activated, while the Messiah of Edom is already activated and they're doing their thing. It could be it's almost a parallel kind of thing that's happening. It's like Messiah Joseph could uncloak, and it might actually be next week or next year. So it could still play out within the 4 years of the Trump administration, like you're saying, that certain things could happen with the military and with the judicial branch and all this stuff that hunts down and kills the evil. All right. But it's fascinating. I thought what the rabbi said was fascinating. Maybe we should replay it and do another show and just replay it, because sometimes when you listen to something 2 or 3 times, you get more out of it.
Because I'm interested in someone like Bukhali, who's essentially saying it was one of the most dangerous countries, and what he's had to do in order to basically clean house. Obviously, like I said, it seems to be the people that are the puppeteers, to say, would have been orchestrating the corruption within our government over, for a long period of time, that it's so entrenched that, as it starts to move towards the top of the food chain, that group becomes very difficult to tackle in the normal, through the normal channels.
Let me ask you a question. You give me your best guess. All right. There is this New Testament concept of the false Messiah. All right. And with this new knowledge from the rabbi, what he was saying about the different messiahs, right, that are of a lesser degree compared to the Messiah of the Davidic lineage, do you think that people within Christianity will view the messiahs of Joseph or the messiahs of Edom as the false Messiah? They'll misinterpret it.
I think that I'm not. I'd have to talk more within the evangelical Christian groups as to see what they're actually seeing. I saw during the last, 2016, 2020, obviously, and this last election, there's definitely aligning. I believe they've always aligned, I think, with Trump. This time around, they actually, the Amish, within my community came out, I think, because they started to see the encroachment on government within their affairs.
Right.
So, and I'm saying I'd have to go back to see what they are seeing, but they definitely think there's talk of revelations. But I'd be interested to see if things have changed, because the corruption is now being exposed, and there seem to be people being put into positions of power to actually now do something. It's the fear would be is there enough on the left to create the chaos? Because it was, I tell you what, one other interesting I found was, just as an aside, someone came up to me, was about Trump fan, and it's just fascinating. Some particular policies, which I can't wrap my head around. For instance, he was saying they can't understand his policy on Ukraine, and so I explained his position and so forth. But there's definitely still these ideas of Russia being whatever, the Satan and so forth. And it's like Satan, but that is our major foe.
Right.
And
It's a Cold War mentality. It's a carryover from the Cold War.
And it's very simplistic.
Right.
Know nothing of the history, know the complexity of the deal making, nor even the biolabs and so forth. Zelensky and Kolomoisky and the Panama. It's too much. So again, you're relegated to tell. You have a short amount of time to present information in front of them to maybe change their perspective, reorient it to the idea we have to end these endless wars. Right. And it's fascinating to me. I guess I'd be interesting if you polled the world now, and who is the new Walter Cronkite? Like, who is the most trusted name right now for the majority of the world, who represents the person who tells the truth? And I would tend to think Assange would be a person that would be looked to, and Musk has got to be elevating.
I would agree with you with Assange. I mean, he does have the street cred, but there is an element of he wanted to be in the spotlight. He used to be a hacker. He was convicted as a hacker, and there's an element of being in the spotlight with the whole WikiLeaks and stuff. So there's an element of showbiz with Assange, even though I agree with what he's saying. Just some of his demeanor is not Walter Cronkite-ish, you know. So, but maybe it's not one person. Maybe it's a combination of people to trust. I'm not sure.
And I only say that is because I think from the Christian standpoint, I definitely see this Christian, I would call it the Christ consciousness. I definitely see that emerging, like amongst, say, my circles and so forth. It's coming into the conversation more and more, getting back to the sort of the Christ and his teachings.
And Don, I'll tell you, it's going to get even more when they do the red heifer sacrifice. And I mean, right now, supposedly there are 3 that are kosher to slaughter. The problem that they're having is that they can't do it wrong when they slaughter. It has to be 100% perfect when they slaughter the animal. And it's a young person that's doing it because they're not. My understanding is just that the reason why they haven't slaughtered is because they can't get the guy to check it right. They can't get it to slaughter it right. The guy that's holy enough to do this can't slaughter it correctly. You still there? Or did I lose you? You still there? Hey, Don, you still there? You got the speaker. I just can't hear you. Hello? Yeah, I think I lost Don. Well, unfortunately, that was a good conversation, but I lost him. Don, I can't hear you. But the point that I was making when Don left was that.
How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was at my last point. It's fascinating to me. I kind of been seeing this catharsis going on. Like a lot of people, it's almost as if as this corruption gets exposed, it's even people within their own personal dealings have to look inside to see the type. You're what you have done. It's almost like self-reflection going on. It's almost, to me, from a cultural standpoint, as this corruption gets exposed, it makes you think I don't know, of your own past, where you may have fallen short. So I find it very, and like I said, very interesting times.
Exactly, and this is what I said right after October 7th of 2023, when Israel, was invaded and they went to war with Hamas and all this, that everyone in the world is going to have to do self-reflection, and we're all getting blessed and cursed at different levels. And that if we actually try to improve ourselves, realize that we are failing in certain areas in our lives, and everyone fails differently in a different magnitude. But if you try to become a better person, you're going to end up turning the curse into a blessing. And I said that back right after October 7th. I believe it was October 10th when I said it. So, and people that have seen and felt what's going on in the world probably have been doing something very similar, a self-reflection and their version of repentance to actually align themselves with this big event that's coming.
And I think so. Even when it was a Vietnam vet that I was talking to, and I mentioned I explained to him what I felt was the correct, course in Ukraine. I thought Trump and Elon have been trying to do the right thing to negotiate with Russia and try to end the war. And afterwards he thanked me and was like, maybe the wars that we fought were done for the right reasons. So I mean, my point is, like he sort of looked at me with that self-reflection. So and to me, it's war is the thing that we've been these endless wars that make no sense. And I think as Trump starts, and I think he is de-escalating these wars, that to me would say that we're entering some type of new stage for humanity, a higher state of shared prosperity for all.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you on that. But the thing is there's another element that I've been noticing in American society. And that is there are this group that are pacifists that are trying to demonize the process. You know, there's lots of anti-Semitism going on. There's also demonization of Christians from the ultra left side. So there's this. That's why I think that a part of American society is attached to the negative soul root of Esau, and they're going to go down in flames with it, unless they decide to switch sides, truthfully, and not just to survive their own, to save their own hide, but to truthfully repent and move towards the positive soul root of Esau. People like for example, I'll just throw a name out that I think just is like so belligerent with anti-Semitism is Stu Peters. Stu Peters is a major anti-Semite. Now he may try to use, some sort of explanation on why he is the way he is, but I mean, if you look at this from a biblical perspective, he seems to have attached himself with the negative soul root of Esau. How could someone try to he's demonizing Trump where he's aligning with Netanyahu. So why would you do that if that, these characters that are in this major play that is happening in front of our eyes in real time, they're not lily white. Trump's not lily white, but he has been given a blessing. All right. Even Elon Musk is not lily white, because look at how much, all the fornication that he's doing.
Look, the thing that I find fascinating, because I keep going back to having watched the movie on Vince McMahon and the WWE, and that's politics. I mean, the way, if you watch that, and the way that Vince McMahon reads the crowd and creates the heel, right, and creates the storylines that the crowd actually is chanting, and actually has, they were sending death threats to the sheik, during the time that the Iran conflict, during the, I guess would have been the 70s. But the point is, they created these unbelievable storylines that they got the crowd involved in it. And that, to me, is the game that Trump's involved with. He's trying to steer people that have, fallen for this weaponized empathy of these constructed narratives. And the complexity of the history and the religions and the cultures, you cannot educate them. You're dealing with very simple stories, with the masses.
Yeah, but there's a large part of the population that is anti-Semitic and almost false Christian, also almost false Christian in a way. All right.
But here's what I'm saying. A general that I knew in Peru, a Peruvian general, he explained to me the Shining Path, and he said the Shining Path, of course, was a Marxist group, and he says that's not right. It essentially was a drug cartel that was masking its operations around an economic ideology that it was for the people. It was completely horseshit.
Right.
So my point is the same thing. I think that what we've seen is that these criminal syndicates that essentially, I would say, rule, steer, create these blackmailing, extortion rings and so forth. They can hide behind, things to shield them from being looked into. And that's what I've seen happen.
But in the United States, there's this, what I call the truther movement. All right. And that truther movement, a big part of them watch people that are literally anti-Semitic. So there's a crowd that is being fed daily this rhetoric. So it's going to go antithetical to this process that the rabbi talked about, because they're going to view this. That was the reason why I asked the question. Some of these people are going to say, "Oh, the Messiah of Edom, a Messiah, not the Messiah, but a Messiah of Edom and a Messiah of Joseph, they're going to say, oh, those are false messiahs, and misinterpret the whole process that's happening. And so what happens is they have aligned themselves with the negative soul root of Esau, and they get brought down with Satan when, you know, the mass killing happens of evil. That, you know, so there is almost like Satan, the way I see this is Satan has attached themselves to individuals that have a large soapbox that they can stand on and project out to a large community. And many of the people that are listening to those individuals, they're getting wrapped up into this pacifism. You know, oh, don't, you know, it's not our war. It's not our war. Don't, you know, don't deal with it. Don't deal with it. Just, it's all about, you know, the United States, you know, God, guns, and gold, that mentality. And they lose sight of what the rabbi was saying here, is that there is a larger uprooting of evil, and you have to be engaged and be a participant in helping instead of being a pacifist. And people like Stu Peters and others that are aligned with some of his rhetoric are antithetical to helping the process along with Elon and Trump. Because there are many times that these people will demonize Trump because he is helping Netanyahu root out the negative soul root of Esau. United States is going to kill the Ayatollah, most likely in the Trump administration. Now, how are people like Stu Peters going to be seen with the anti-Semitic rhetoric when literally, if the rabbi's right, that Elon and Trump are the Messiah of Edom?
And
it'll blow his mind. It'll blow his mind because he's aligned himself. Stu Peters has aligned himself as an anti-Semitic individual that wants to be a pacifist.
But here's the dance that I see. The dance that I see, if you look again at, you know, Herman Roosevelt, and you talk about the CIA operation, which basically overthrew the Shah, installed, you know, the Khomeini. So it somehow along the way, the CIA was, again, our rogue intelligence agency, created the conditions for an Islamic radicalization in that region, and again, to have a foothold in that region in order to basically create instability and take advantage to be able to control the oil. I see, like I said, I would say Iran, which again, most people don't realize the Persian history and the greatness of that culture has essentially been replaced with this idea of a heel within the American public of Iran. And that
well,
is not,
to get to more detail of this, it's not really going after Iran, it's going after the Ayatollah. That's the issue.
It's here's the dance.
The Iranian people are actually good people that want democracy.
They want to return to, I would say, back to this Persian, you know, westernized culture, and it's return to greatness. So the dance is who is it that helped install the Ayatollah? Who is it that's basically been funding Wahhabism? And you're going to find all of these crazy connections, you know, between all these, I would say, rogue intelligence agencies that have created this false constructed endless wars in that Middle East.
In a strange way, negative Esau are parts of these rogue national intelligence agencies and the Ayatollah, this theocratic regime that in Iran,
so
funding the terrorism in the Middle East. So that's the negative side of Esau,
which we've been participating in, which we didn't know.
So, and that's why I was saying that at this moment in time, his head is on his body, the positive side of Esau and the negative side of Esau.
Now,
They're connected, but we're literally seeing through Doge and them exposing all this, that we're starting to see the splitting of Esau.
Now, the only thing is, I think that there's so much, obviously, that we don't know about, but we do know about some of these intelligence networks working with one another, and perhaps these criminal syndicates, I want to call them, were able to infiltrate both countries, and they've constructed a timeline of events that would engulf, the world into another world war. Which, in the case if Iran were to attack or Israel retaliates. Well, then you have China, Russia, because of their alliances to Iran's defense, and then you'd have Europe and United States coming to, and Israel, and then so Trump has to disentangle this mess.
Yes, and this is the reason why that if Trump and Putin can become friendly, maybe not friends, but friendly, then or friendlier, then what could happen is that we could actually have an ally against the CCP.
And this is the game he's got to play, because Trump right now, Putin is the heel. Right, Zelensky was meant to be. We sent all those entertainers over there, paid for by USAID, because they represent Hollywood, which represent the masses, and so they go over there and they make Zelensky into this wartime hero, and he's a transvestite comedian backed by Kolomoisky. So the American people, we've been fooled. Again, in this, I call it WWE. Set. And now we have to, as the information comes and the complexity of the cultures and the Victoria Nuland involved in the Maidon, it just now, as people maybe start to wake up, now Trump can actually work with Putin, because now the people are more receptive to it. So it's a giant. He's playing a game of working within this framework as Overton window of allowing the American people to wake up to this corruption, so that he can pull out of Ukraine in a way that the people who aren't awake can at least think that a deal was made that they feel good about. And once that deal's settled, then he can now disentangle the Iran-Israel conflict, walk that back. He already has Saudi Arabia, and now you have Neom. There's that new city being constructed. It's just, he's turning it into a real estate deal now. So it's complex. You're dealing with narratives.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a work.
Exactly. No. You got it. Now, to go back to the negative Esau part, our national security state, part of it, a big part of it, as the Ayatollah goes down, the negative part of our national security state has to go down with it, because it is the negative side of Esau. Satan has attached itself to our national security state, this rogue element. What created the Ayatollah is part of our national security state that is tied to Satan. And that has to die. That's why it has to die. And that's why Tulsi and Hegseth and Cash, they're all very important characters in this huge play, because they're actually shining a light on the nefarious activities of our national security state.
Yeah, and I think the fact that they're going after their cartels now, I think that kind of gives me a pretty optimistic, because that whole narco trafficking network was Trump.
It's shutting down the black ops of the CIA.
And you had the largest fentanyl plant in Canada.
I didn't know that.
So I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's just, you don't even talk. Nobody in our country is even thinking that the Canadian border was a problem. And yet now the Mounties say there are 21 gangs working, bringing in drugs into this country, and so it's, everybody knew. What you realize, there's no way they didn't know. They all knew. They all knew about Epstein. They all knew about Jimmy Savile. They knew about Mark Detroit. They knew about all these pedophile rings. They all knew.
Mm-hmm. My concern is that, and this is a lesson learned from the whole COVID years. My concern is that all this new information comes out. There's lots of exposure, but where's the accountability? Where is the judicial branch coming in and actually holding people accountable? This is why I don't hold too much faith in information warfare, because I didn't see it turn into kinetic during the COVID. I mean, I'm still waiting for Fauci to be prosecuted. You know, the motherfucker killed my mother. You know, so with his gain of function research. I just like, where's the accountability? And so I lose faith in this information warfare where you just release the Epstein list or whatever. Like, so what? I mean, until people are held accountable and these systems are destroyed, these organizations are destroyed, I have very little faith of an info war.
So this is where I see it'd be interesting to, in your medical, among your medical
experience,
I'm just among the personnel, what they think about Fauci at this point in time, because I think I'd be interested to see what the general public at this point in time is still thinking of the pandemic.
I think there's two main groups. You have the group that has the dogma, where they believe that they're still in their mind because of their training, that what is published must be true, that there's no nefarious things going on with published research, and that they're in this mindset that the more inoculations you give someone, the better off their immune system is going to be. They literally they have this really strong dogma that they can't get rid of. Then you have another group that actually has woken up and said, well, wait a minute here. You know, if you actually look at this objectively, there are people that are being harmed, and there's not enough understanding of why this is happening, but yet we keep on moving forward with more inoculations. So let's stop and figure out what the hell is going on. So I think those are the two main groups. All right. Now, unfortunately, the profession is very it's kind of military-esque in a way during the training to be a physician. You have to follow protocols that there's a certain set of exams at a certain date, and you have to put X amount of hours of training in, blah blah blah. It's very regimental. All right, so it's not exactly like being in the military, but it's sort of like being in the military. And so by the time you get your licensing, you've already been formed to believe the dogma, because that's how you got the license. They don't give the license if you don't believe the dogma.
I think my confusion still is when you, again, talking to the doctors and so forth, it'd be interesting to see in the hospitals, you pull people aside, what do they truly believe, and poll people and see what the percentage is. I think the one thing where you're talking about Fauci, I think not only if you look at those percentages, they're probably still about 50-50, or might even be less, who still think there was something nefarious or think that there's something wrong.
I would agree with you that about 50. I would say that it's close to 50% of healthcare workers that would say that there were nefarious things going on with COVID and the inoculations.
So that's only 50%. And then if among the 50 who thought there was nefarious, I don't think they have any idea about the bioweapons programs, right? I don't think they've looked at some Dr. Martin, who was looking at the patents and so forth back to the anthrax in 2008. So
I think that's less than 25%. Maybe 10%, maybe 10 to 20%, maybe. The thing is that, Martin's not on their radar. This just totally, people like Martin are just not on their radar with these for these physicians. And part of it is that they're too busy. Another part of it is that, COVID's kind of like the COVID war has ended. You know, so anyone that keeps on resurrecting the COVID war is kind of like looking at this from a historical point of view. All right?
So the only, I was going back to Nuremberg trials. I mean, did we learn? You know, if we go back and when we think that there was justice that we had, when we go down this path and we understand where exactly the COVID originated from, and we find the person and who was behind it and so forth. It's then did we get justice in Nuremberg, or and we just doesn't seem like we learned anything.
Well, I mean, you know, there was some justice in the Nuremberg trials, but what's even scarier is that Operation Paperclip. We brought in Nazis to help with our weapons program and our NASA program. So, I mean, you know, so the United States, again, has wrapped themselves in the negative soul root of Esau in many ways. You know, and we're now living through the unravelment of that. But, you know, I would like to see some accountability for these people on the Epstein list, or the people that were involved in the gain of function research that led to the horrific experience that we went through, you know, during the COVID years, you know, and all these other things that all these other nefarious things that are happening.
Well, you know,
you
find it interesting, I think it was Dr. Cruz or whatever. He was on, I think it was on the Bitcoin, whatever. He was on somebody's, but he was talking about podcasters now are becoming the history that will be preserved, because the other history is going to be
that's the reason. Don, you're hitting I knew this right away when COVID was happening, and that was the reason why I created all these different channels, and 2 of them were blown up, were nuked. But I knew that what I was doing in trying to capture my thoughts in real time of what was happening was going to be data mined later for a future for a future generation to understand and prevent something similar from happening again. I had to document it, and it had to be cloned to be able for it to be data mined later. I knew that there's going to be this sediment of information that was coming out of my brain, you know, with covering COVID, that is very important for the historical context of what we went through. For sure. I totally agree with that podcasters are becoming actually data miners of information and packaging it into a historical context.
And he's saying you make sure you ask the hard questions when you get people that were involved in the decision making during this time. Right. That you're holding them accountable during these podcasts and asking them really not backing off until you get an answer. And the other thing I thought you might find interesting, I think, is one of his solutions was to take marketing out of the medical industry.
Oh, for sure, because it's through the marketing with big pharma on how they push their products. They're actually training the patient to go in to see the physician to tell the physician what disease they have so they can get a medication. And then there's a little bit of a payback to the doctor. Now, back in the day when my father was in pharmaceutical sales, all right, he retired from AstraZeneca, but and he started pharmaceutical sales in the late 70s. So I saw as a kid the transition of the M&A that was going on in big pharma, with small pharmaceutical companies being wrapped up into conglomerates like J&J. And back in the day, these pharmaceutical sales guys, they could pay for conferences for the doctor and lunches, and to get them to prescribe their medication to their patients, and they'd get tons of samples and all these things. But regulation came in and basically closed that those dealings. But it opened up another way, and that was instead of it's the sales guy pushing the drug onto the doctor to get him to prescribe it, it's really mainstream media programming the patient to ask for the drug now. And they're looking for like blockbuster, everything's $1 billion. They only want $1 billion type drugs for revenue. You know, they don't want to focus on orphan ones. So they're looking at the obesity, they're looking at, you know, cancer, they're looking at heart disease, they're looking at SSRIs and depression and all this stuff, right? That so many people have. So you have a population that's getting more and more and more depressed as they're watching CNN, and then CNN gives a commercial to go to their, you know, local psychiatrist and get an SSRI. That's the game right now. But if you can cut that off, then you stop the patient programming that's taking place.
And I think that was it. You forget about that because it was, I think, RFK. I remember him talking about Junior, saying he tried to he wanted to get onto even Fox News to present his case about the number of shots that were being done early, early scheduled vaccines, and so forth. That there possibly is a link to autism.
I mean, you know, the thing is, it's just using common sense. Look at people that were baby boomers and Gen X. How many people had autism? And just do a simple regression. How many inoculations when they were in their pediatric years did they receive? And then compare it to the number of incidences of, you know, of vaccine injury or autism, however you want to measure it, to the number of inoculations that someone gets that is Gen Y or millennial or whatever. And you'll notice in that regression that there seems to be a correlation. Can't prove causation with just that analysis, but there is a correlation between the number of inoculations in the pediatric years and autism. And so further research shows that these people have a pruning issue when the brain is going through its pruning process during adolescence. And so we have a plethora of people that have ADHD now. We have a plethora of people that can't learn. Now, some of it's environmental, but there is something going on with this over scheduling during the pediatric years. Now, I'm not saying that all inoculations are bad, but the thing is there's definitely a problem with the schedule. But Big Pharma needs it. Big Pharma makes money on it, and they don't. And they don't have the liability, so they don't care.
And that's what Roger Ailes said. He said that I can't put you on, but I would love to because his kid had. He said his kid was autistic, but he says it's just our sales are dependent upon the pharmaceutical.
Well, you know, the thing is that there's a lot of Orthodox communities that have children, right? They don't do those schedulings like, you know, in secular society. Guess what? Guess what? They have low autism. They don't have autism. The Amish don't have autism.
Right, and so and going back to the idea is that you realize CNN, Fox News, their major sponsors are the pharmaceuticals. So you take, you know, and the debate was going whether it was libertarian. You know, the idea is you can't get involved in the market, and he was making the case in this particular one. He think you have to get the marketing out of pharmaceuticals.
I think getting marketing out of the pharmaceuticals is a major step forward, but there also needs to be a major pushback of society on the professional healthcare workers promoting mandatory scheduling to get into schools. See, where they get where they get the parents is they say, you can't send your kid to public school or even private school unless they have a certain scheduling of vaccines. That's how they get them. And so many people would say, okay, I'm just going to do a homeschool. And there's some parents have the wherewithal to do that and they're successful. Some parents don't have the wherewithal and they're not successful. But the thing is that we have a society that forces the parents' hand where they have to follow, quote, the professional, not recommendation, but mandate. There's a mandate with these, unless you can prove because of some sort of medical condition, blah, blah, blah. But most people don't really have a medical condition that would be able to override the mandate. So what happens is that parents try to do the right thing for their kids. They want them to be healthy. Most parents don't want children to be sick, and they just believe what the medical establishment says. And if the government says that you have to have this to get the kid into school, then the parent just blindly says, okay, because they think that the government and the medical profession knows better. But the reality of the situation is that the medical profession, and I've, spent some time in it, they do not understand immunology. The immunologists don't understand immunology. We're at its infancy stage. Now, we probably know more about immunology than we know about psychiatry. And that just is another big problem, because they're over medicating people in the psychiatric discipline with very blunt instruments. They don't know what they're doing. And we're going to look back 50 years from now, we're going to say psychiatrists were idiots. And we're going to be looking back 50 years from now and saying immunologists were idiots. You still there?
Yeah, no, I'm actually, I may lose you. I'm going to be tipping into another hill here.
Yeah, but I agree that, it is getting late though, Don. It's time for me to go to bed. But the thing is that there is a problem that's going on in society. Now, I don't know if I'm even going to have a strike on this conversation, because we're streaming on YouTube, and when I repost, that's when I get the strike. So it'd be interesting to see if I get a strike on this conversation that we've had. But the thing is that I'll take a look and take some notes at Rabbi, what those 4 bullet points that he mentioned.
Yeah, around redemption.
Yeah. Because he goes off. He warms up slowly to it. He's trying to educate the ones that are listening, so they're up to speed, and then he goes into the whole Trump and Elon thing. But it takes him almost like halfway into the video to get there. But I should replay it actually live and do comments about it. But yeah, I thought that was a good video. I think I learned stuff from it. But we're living in very interesting times, but it's beyond just interesting. It's biblical. We're living through a biblical phases in this, and I personally think we're all in Egypt, and we're getting ready. Maybe it's our children or our children's children generation, but mankind's getting ready for the mass exodus out of their slavery. And what we are doing today, and what Trump and Elon is doing today, is setting in motion for that to happen. Now, hopefully it happens in our lifetime. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But something big's happening, that's for sure. I'm looking back, at over 50 years of my life, and I've never seen anything like this. I've never experienced any feeling like this ever. This is something unique. There's something special about what's happening here. So.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
100%. I keep going back. I'm seeing people close to me as well, just having some type of a little bit, and I think we're, and I think it's funny. One of the guys that I do follow, Armstrong, who has a model that on confidence model. He even has these spiritual cycles, right? That we're entering the age of Aquarius, from Pisces, and And the thing, the other guy, I kind of look to. I always try to look at Netflix and who the people that are elevated. They go on Rogan and so forth. So you have people like Randall Carlson, and you have people Graham Hancock that are talking about even these 12,000. You're talking about the Younger Dryas. You're talking about when you're with Plato and Atlantis. There are even geophysical events that are happening, right? That are happening alongside this. Mm-hmm. And we may be entering some type of geophysical event as well. That
right, and in the Talmud and in biblical texts, it said that the actual climate for Israel will be more conducive to growing crops. So the climate has to change in the Middle East. And maybe it's fast. Maybe we're starting to live through it right now. I find it odd that we're living through a cold spell in the second term of Trump's administration.
But it's funny. Trump said that it was actually he was in a conference in California, and someone was lecturing him on climate change, and said it's going to get colder. Yeah. So he knows something's coming. And the other guy that this Armstrong in his model as well is that everybody's talking about the pole shift. So they either happen slowly or they could happen quickly.
It could be the pole shift or a combination of the pole shift and maybe even the cold and the heat circulation within the Atlantic Ocean.
Right. The conveyor system.
The conveyor system.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things to play. The solar cycles and so forth. It's obviously things that I can't. It's kind of fun to hear. And what you find also is like Einstein was even interested in this in these shifts as well. And I think he was following a guy whose work Hapwood. So even like these big brains were very interested in these events, just for the reason I think the evolutionary thought that things happen on incremental level. Well, in fact, maybe we see these massive changes in these catastrophic events, and perhaps they happen more often than we think. So it's a challenge even to sort of this Darwinian theory of its play on our evolution. So,
I mean, even geologists and archaeologists are saying that Egypt is a lot older than the standard thought of Egyptology. That Egypt is a lot older.
And it's like you're saying, it's hard for me not to imagine now that all of a sudden we have LiDAR, and now we're finding all of these civilizations, all these different.
Right. And the pyramids aren't just a bunch of stones just stacked up to bury a pharaoh. That's a machine. That's like an energy machine. How it works, I'm not really sure, but it just looks like a machine.
It's hard for me. I keep going back to whatever Tesla seems to be front and center, even obviously Elon using his name for the car. But I think as Tesla, again, is one of these people probably who will be rediscovered. And so
what's interesting is wasn't the one that was able to read some of the notes from Tesla was Trump's uncle.
Trump's uncle, yes.
So Trump's tied to Tesla. It's so this is so like out of this world. It's like sci-fi.
Exactly. That's why it feels like sci-fi now. It's almost like there are multiple timelines. And we went through a timeline where Trump looks like 2016 disrupted a timeline that was supposed to play out, in which possibly we would have seen World War III. But we still had to go through 4 years of Biden because the people weren't awake quite yet to understand the true level of evil that have infiltrated most of our government institutions. We weren't ready yet for redemption.
Right. All right. Well, we're gonna let that be for tonight, and we'll pick it up on the next transmission. But I appreciate the talk, Don. I like our conversations and getting and recording it and putting it out there for the historians. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You have a good night.
You too, Paul.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, so that was the transmission for tonight. I'll do another one tomorrow. Thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate the ones that spent the time on X Spaces and the ones that were watching on YouTube, the live feed. I will repost this. Hopefully I don't get a strike on YouTube. Hopefully. I just got off one, got off a strike just yesterday. But you just have a good night. See you tomorrow.